What we do here is go back. What we do here is go back.
Working. You never know, it might be working now, hopefully. Who knows? Good evening, Mike here, Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To. It is Saturday the 20th of April, 420 day. Hopefully you've had a blazing 420 day. Those of you that celebrate blazing 420 day, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, it's probably for the best. Anyway, hopefully the stream is working okay. I've had a few technical difficulties getting this set up, so bear with us, we'll see what happens. That is part of the reason why I haven't actually scheduled anything specific for this stream. This is just an AMA, or Ask Me Anything. So we can have a general chat, talk about anything which is in the news at the moment, or anything which tickles your fancy, basically. And we'll hope that the stream will actually maintain stability. Even just setting this up and preparing to go live, it said that it lost connection about 6 times. So we'll see how things go. If it's good, obviously we'll continue and do what we can. If it starts getting a little bit flaky, there's not really much else I can do. It does appear to be something at the YouTube end rather than being at our end. Connectivity wise, our system seems absolutely fine. Doing stress tests, uploading, downloading massive files, absolutely fine, no problems whatsoever. Through VPNs, etc., everything is absolutely fine. So it does appear that it's something to do with the connection to the YouTube streaming side of things. So yes, our apologies if things go somewhat rubbish. Hopefully they won't do. American Medical Association. No, we're not quite there. I see and hear you, says Rick H. Thank you very much. And thank you, Rick, for your gift. You sent some tyre plugs for when you get a puncture, these little screw things you can put into your tyres, which is very helpful and very handy. And hopefully I don't need them. You never want a puncture, but if I do, at least I've got the right things to easily prepare them. And
should we do super chats?
Let's get the super chats out of the way. Let me scroll back up the page to see where we are. Top chat. I don't want top chat. I want all live chat. Maybe if that's to refresh. I've just had some Hunter's chicken, and I'm salted out to the max. So I was withering away. I have to get some fluids inside me. That sounds ominous. Dave Aitkins coming with a £2 super chat. Thank you very much. Says Saturday night. I feel the air is getting hot. It's bloody freezing in here. It's 20 degrees and currently about 47% humidity. So yeah, it's a bit chilly in here. That's why I've still got my jacket on. Been out in the garden today and it was actually quite nice. So I know where you're coming from. Summer is getting here. Hopefully. Dutch Jan says buffering already. I'm not too sure how long ago that was, but hopefully it does not continue. And where else is there? Another super chat. Ugly Bob says, I have kleptomania, but when it gets bad, I take something for it. For those who don't know what kleptomania is, it's basically someone who keeps on collecting things or taking things. Dave Aiken says you need to start driving if you want to fix a puncher mic. There is that to it. I can't remember the last time I drove a car.
You drove before Sue's funeral.
It would have been
By October.
at least 6 months ago, maybe more.
It was October.
Yeah, October, November, December,
6 months because the kitten's
January, February, March, April. 7 months. 6 or 7
months.
months.
At the end of...
I don't drive a lot, as you've probably guessed already.
Are we doing super chat still?
Yeah, I think that was
I
it.
got distracted. No, there's another. There's another 2.
I haven't got them on my screen.
Ah.
Me have a look
Rick-
on the other
Rick
screen.
H.
Oh, hang on, I can look at viewer activity, can't I? Rick H, there we go. I can't click on it for some reason, but anyway. Rick H says, this super chat is dedicated to Drunken Bob. Very kind of you. There was Dave Aikens, £2. Ugly Bob, the kleptomania. And also there was a PayPal payment coming from good friend of the channel, Colin Hilton. God bless you, Colin. Thank you very much for the PayPal donation. And of course, to all of you out there, if you want to make any kind of contribution to the channel, you're more than welcome to do so. You can do it in various different ways. You can become a member on YouTube. There's a little button at the bottom saying become a member or membership or I don't know, something along those lines. Also for Patreon, if you want to go to Patreon, you can make a donation there. Either a one-time donation or you can be a repeat offender, so to speak, and keep on giving us a contribution every month. There's various different tiers you can do from like a couple of dollars to, well, whatever you want to do. There's various options available for you. Patrons get early access to videos a little bit earlier than YouTube members. YouTube members, you get videos about a week, maybe slightly more, a little bit earlier, so you get access to those. Other methods, obviously PayPal. If you want to make a direct payment via PayPal, you're more than welcome to do so. Or alternatively, stick some good old-fashioned cash in an envelope and stuff it down into the thing where you post letters, post box. That's what I was looking for. Sorry, my chair's gone a little bit awry. And send us money. If you want to. You don't have to. Although you're probably better off sending money to the people that EK haven't paid. Good segue to that little chestnut there. For those of you who don't know or have not been following the news today and the last couple of days, there's been all kinds of mischief going on over at EK Waterblocks or EK.com or EK Limited, whatever company they're deciding to call themselves. They're basically kind of 2 or 3 different companies. So when I say EK, I mean the group of companies. So just so you're aware. I noticed I'm actually friends with one of the people that was mentioned in the Gamers Nexus. I won't say it's a hit piece, they were basically just reporting on it, much like other people will be doing, I guess. Gamers Nexus is probably one of the ones with the biggest influence, I would say, probably on YouTube. And yeah, one of the guys on there I was friends with, so I actually saw the post when it originally came out on Friday and was kind of like, okay, here we go. Now I have noticed actually very recently, there's a couple of people that I follow from EK Waterblocks, even though I don't particularly like the company, and I've actually never bought anything from EK as far as I'm aware. I don't remember buying anything. I don't think I've had anything of EK ever. It's just always been one of those companies that I've just had on my periphery and just not interested in at all. I'm not sure why. I think it's because back in the day they were kind of like the GOAT and everyone was like, oh, you gotta have EK Vardar fans are the best on the planet, etc, etc. And it was very much the same with Noctua. I was very much like, just, yes, This premium stuff, I'm not really interested in. I haven't got the money for it. Doesn't interest me at all. Anyway, I digressed in. So, yeah, another person who I also follow, who also works for EK, has been extremely, extremely quiet on the Facebook and social media stuff. Now, normally they're a very larger than life character and posting pictures of them at various different conventions and with products and all the famous people that you see on YouTube, all your favorite YouTubers. And very much kind of like, yay, we're EK, all excited and hyper. But there's been nothing for a couple of weeks, or at least a week that I can think of. I haven't been following it that closely, but you know, it was like you look on your feed, someone pops up and it kind of, sometimes it jogs your memory. But it's all been very, very quiet on that front. So I think there's possibly some people that work at EK that are still a little bit kind of, do I keep quiet and hopefully keep my job? Or do I sound off and join everyone else? And I don't know. There's obviously different reasons for different people, and depending on their experiences. The individual that is mentioned in the Gamers Nexus piece, Dan Henderson, I have been watching his posts quite frequently. He's actually now works for Antech. So he quit EK, I think about a month or so ago, and he is now working for Antech. So hopefully, Dan, if you're watching this, or if anyone knows Dan or whatever, hopefully, Dan, you are finding things much better. You're in a much better place now, and hopefully EK give you what you're due, and hopefully a little bit more for the stress and anxiety caused. But anyway, that's by the by. Kath's got her hand up.
Helsing's got a very important tech question.
I doubt that very much. Helsing has a very important tech question. Well, put it in the chat. You never know. I might answer it. It's possible.
Andrew, hello Mike, I'm using the same full HD monitor since 2010, but for the first time I got a really good GPU in RTX 4070 Ti S. Do you think I have to buy Quad HD now?
No. If it works and you're happy, stick with it. No reason to change it. If you're happy, whatever. Anyway, back to the story. So, yeah, EK has been in the news. It looks like either they are heading towards some form of collapse, whether or not they will just take a financial hit on one area of the company, write that off, and then bring back another EK dot whatever company. It happens all the time. A company gets into trouble, they get into deep shit, they basically kill the company and create another one out of the ashes of it. It's an extremely, extremely common thing. It is effectively, not theft, that's probably the wrong word for it, but a lot of companies do it. They get into trouble. It's basically a loophole in the law that means that you can basically continue trading the very same day if you want to, with exactly the same people, albeit one or two, such as the people on pieces of paper. They can change, but effectively the same company can carry on. Sometimes you don't even notice it. A company does it in the background and it's happened, and it's only when you actually look into their company and it says, oh, they're such and such trading as such and such company. So it happens all the time in the background, but this has been one of those instances where it looks like it's going to become considerably more public. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there. My personal feelings, like I've said, EK has never been a company which has appealed to me in any way, shape or form. I have followed them on Facebook and through other formats just to see what they've got coming out in the pipeline. And to be honest with you, nothing has ever really interested me at all. I don't do custom water cooling, so that side of things, which I believe they excel at, is not been of any interest to me because it seems like a very expensive hobby to get into. I would imagine the likes of Corsair, Thermal Take and various others will be kind of rubbing their hands with glee possibly if EK do decide to depart from that market, because that is basically kind of theirs really for a lot of stuff. There's Alpha Core and various others as well. But I think EK have one that had previously a very, very good name in the industry, but it seems that is being somewhat tarnished now. So I'll be interested to hear what your thoughts on that. So I will I'll look through the chat to see what you're saying. Yes, Kath?
Question came in now.
All right.
Very important.
We have a very, very important question
Helsing.
from Helsing. An extremely important technical question.
Have you got it? Or
No, I can't even see it.
this HP laptop.
Oh God, it's a late laptop. It's not important if it's a laptop. Laptops aren't computers. Helsing. This HP laptop that I'm updating, the motherboard says 1 DIMM only, though both SODIMM slots are open and show 200. That show 29 gigabytes of. What's going on in the background there?
Available of.
Sorry, my PC fans are ramping up in for some reason. One of the. I don't understand that at all. This HP laptop that I'm updating, the motherboard says 1 DIMM only. Though both SODIMM slots are open and show. What do you mean? They're both open? They're both there? I don't understand the question at all. Am I being stupid here? And show 29 gigabytes available of the 32.
Is that the Windows?
2 times 16 gig sticks there. Should I just put in one? No, because it's a laptop and you've gone over 16 gigabytes, it's very likely that your laptop has got integrated graphics. So immediately the system is going to allocate 3 gigabytes or 2 gigabytes, probably 2 gigabytes. But because of how it rounds up and rounds down, that's why it's showing 29 gig available. So yeah, 3 gigs or technically 2 gigs are going to be allocated to the GPU, and half a gig I think is allocated to the system as well. So that is absolutely normal. If you put in just a one single 32 gig on its own, it's still going to report in Windows as 29 gigabytes. That's just the way that laptops generally work. And any PC which has integrated graphics which are enabled. So yeah, there's not really a great deal you can do about that. That it kind of is what it is.
And then Andrew's put a question. What brand is usually most trusted for you? Asus, Gigabyte, MSI, maybe none of them.
Andrew's question there, yeah. As Kath just said, what brand is usually most trusted for you? Asus, Gigabyte, MSI, maybe none of them. I would say probably none of them. I don't think that any of them are most trusted. I have preferences, certainly. I prefer using MSI motherboards, for sure. I find the BIOS to be considerably more accessible and well laid out. I also find the MSI software, in terms of the RGB control, albeit that it's limited, pretty decent. And also the MSI fan control is brilliant. Love it. I think it's possibly the best one on the market in terms of motherboard software. In terms of reliability, I would say MSI are very much like a lot of other companies where they are manufacturing an awful lot of stuff and they can't have their hands across everything. So there is going to be times where there's higher than usual failure rates. I don't think that is specifically a wholly MSI thing. I think all companies have that issue. I know ASRock years ago were absolutely horrendous for RMA returns, like ridiculously so. Then it was Gigabyte. Gigabyte were next on the list with AM3, AM3 Plus. Those boards, especially the FX 990s and FX 970 chipsets, I think it was, they were absolutely hideous. The failure rates on those was absolutely bonkers. So I think they all go through it. Asus obviously have had their problems more recently with overvolting processors and have been a little bit more in the kind of public consciousness. MSI have had their own issues with various different dodgy stuff going on between them and YouTubers. So I don't think any of them are necessarily trustworthy. And ultimately, they're all owned by the same company anyway, or the same group of companies. So it's kind of like, it's sort of just like a football team, really. And if there's a football team you like, you'll pretty much stick with them. Even if they have a crap season, you'll probably just stick with them because it's just a thing. We have that kind of tribal instinct. Some people don't. They're happy to use anything. I like using MSI stuff, despite the fact they very rarely will send me anything these days, which is quite disappointing, but hey, it is what it is. I'm quite happy. In fact, if you look at, actually I'll move that because that's a bill. Just here, these are 2 boards which I've actually purchased myself, and tax form, don't want to show that. V650 Edge Wi-Fi, that was one I bought ages ago. That is going to be going back into that PC behind me relatively soon. And that's all right, that wasn't a tax form. I thought it was. And this is one I've actually bought this week. So this is the B650M Gaming Plus Wi-Fi, which actually replaces the B650 non-M Gaming Wi-Fi Plus thing that we had last week, that we were testing that processor on. And I'm happy to say that processor is actually on this board at the moment and works. So it looks like it was the motherboard that was doing some weird stuff. I don't know. I still am not very keen on these LGA sockets. I think the more pins we're getting on these LGA sockets, the worse that computing is going to get. If you think I'm wrong, please let me know in the chat. But I think that we desperately need to go back to the LGA pins from AM4. I think AM4 was a much better platform, I honestly do, than AM5 and also modern Intel stuff. Modern Intel stuff seems to be getting gradually worse and worse, and they seem to be regressing. I think the 9th gen and 10th gen, possibly 11th as well, were the kind of the peak of Intel. I think 12th, 13th and 14th gen, although on paper, performing very well. Sorry, I'm just taking my shoes off. I'm shoes on all day and I got them in the house, so I don't need to have my shoes on. I think 12th, 13th and 14th gen from Intel have been somewhat disappointing. And if we are to believe what is going on in the press in general, which generally pinch of salt, whether it's true or not, Intel looks like they're going to be having problems. And I don't think the higher end Intel processors are going to have quite as long a lifespan as their predecessors because of how highly clocked, and they're basically wound up to the very kind of tightest thing, so anything can potentially break them. Yeah. the PC industry, I think that's actually why today's was AMA as well, because I generally am starting to lose an interest in all this computer stuff. I really am. It's getting to the point where there's actually nothing actually interesting, and it's all getting worse. This reminds me very much of the days of when CRT TVs were kicked out and LCDs launched. And everyone was like, oh, LCD technology, wow, it's so small and compact. But yes, it looks shit. It's got no contrast, it looks awful, you look at it on a funny angle and it goes wrong. A CRT looks beautiful. Yes, it's massive and it uses a ton of electricity, but it's a television. It's supposed to look good, that's the whole point of it. And you're replacing it with these LCDs which have got like 16-bit colour or something. And it seems the PC industry is going that way at the moment. They're just ever chasing these faster and faster frequencies. And they're basically breaking computers, or breaking how computers are supposed to be evolving. Rather than getting faster and doing what Moore's Law always said it was supposed to do, they just seem to be getting fractionally faster, but inherently worse. I don't know. It's a very strange situation. I'm not sure what's going on. Moving on. Keir Tan says, love your videos. Thank you very much. That's very, very nice of you. We've had a very funny day today, actually. It's been a bizarre one. So I woke up this morning to the fact that one of our videos has had more views in like 48 hours than pretty much any video ever on the channel.
Probably in 5 hours.
It was just like the most ridiculous thing. And, well, yeah, between 4 and 5 hours, between around about 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning to about, I don't know, 5, 6 o'clock AM here in the UK. In that 5-hour stretch, a video on a kettle had beaten every other video we've ever done in terms of views per hour. It was a kettle. I don't know where the video got put. I looked into the analytics and it said YouTube promotion. So somebody somewhere decided they wanted to promote that video, because you can actually promote someone else's video. As long as you pay for it, you can pretty much do whatever you want, it seems, possibly, because we never promoted it, but someone certainly did. So whoever promoted it, thank you very much. But yeah, if you are looking for a fast boil kettle which doesn't cost a lot of money, then the I can't remember what brand it is now. What brand is it? Russell Hobbs?
Yeah.
The Russell Hobbs, I don't know, mirror finish stainless steel metal thing. You'll find it on the channel. Just look at the most popular video for the last couple of days. Kath's going to put a link in the video description so you can pick up. It's actually a really good kettle. We've had it for years now. And it's,
I don't like it.
It's been awesome.
That's why it's lasted years.
So yeah, it's been a very, very strange day today. Ugly Bob says, laugh my ass off, I have that kettle.
Who's that?
Ugly Bob. Mark Soloway says, and CPU and GPU powers are all ever increasing. Not a good idea. No. And especially the fact that, now, correct me if I'm wrong here. This is me just kind of thinking aloud and trying to go through the steps in my mind.
I know why you like that kettle. You think it just makes you tea all day long. When
It
it's
does.
me that does it.
No, that kettle produces tea, I'm sure of it.
I hate that kettle.
This is how I think it's supposed to work. Okay, so technology advances. They miniaturize what is basically created. So let's say, for instance, silicon chips. So they reduce down the size because they can fit more transistors or diodes or whatever it is on a chip. They can shrink them and do it on a smaller and smaller process. So it becomes more and more efficient. But does that make it more efficient in terms of the gap between the transistors being smaller? So it's an electrical efficiency there, or is it an efficiency in production? I'm guessing it's possibly both, because you're getting more silicon chips out of a individual wafer. But I always thought, whenever I heard about it, that the whole efficiency thing meant that they could achieve the same thing using less energy. And I think that is the case as well. So they miniaturize it and it uses less electricity and it's cheaper to produce, etc., etc. But on the scale of, so if that is the case, you'd think that something which was this big before can then be this big and then can be that big, and using gradually less and less power. So you'd think that by the time you get to this end, where it's smaller, you'd be using less power, but we're now using more power. So someone's lying somewhere, because we're using more power to achieve basically the same at a higher frequency. So the frequency's gone up, the power's gone up, but it ain't much faster.
Price has gone up.
And the price has gone up. So I don't understand it.
And the running costs have gone
Yeah,
up.
it costs more to run, more to use, more to buy, but yet it's more efficient. But it's not. I'm really confused. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense. Bob's like in chips and wafers. Michael Ellingham says, I wish I stayed on AM4. Yes. Very much so. I think the 10th and 11th gen Intel was great. 9th gen was really good. AM4, I think it's going to take a lot of time for AM5 to catch up. And it's going to be one of those situations where you, the viewer, and me for that matter, we are going to be kind of bombarded with the usual stuff from the big names in YouTube, because clearly, obviously, they're being paid to make videos. They are influencers, and their job is to influence you into getting money out of your wallet and buying a platform. I've said numerous times, I think the AM5 is an absolutely awful platform, and I've had nothing but problems with it. And it appears that Intel is beginning to go that way as well, especially with 14th and 13th gen processors on the Z790 and the other platforms. So it's genuinely getting worse. But they are playing that kind of trapdoor game. So we've got this new AM5 platform, so they're expanding the range of the platform and making it cheaper, which is also another signification of people not buying it, because they're reducing the prices so it becomes more appealing. AM4 stuff is starting to get a little bit more pricey, and availability is shrinking, because I guess the manufacturing's down, so manufacturers and retailers are kind of being coerced into basically trying to clear out the old stuff in on with the new as it is. So I don't know. It's a very weird situation. I genuinely hate LGA sockets. I steered well away from them during the Intel years, and I think that was part of the reason why I stayed with AM3, AM3 Plus, and then on to AM4, because I hate LGA sockets. The whole point of having pins on a motherboard that can break just by breathing on them is terrifying. And especially now that motherboards are ridiculously expensive for what they are. I only have to say that today on our Discord, I've had to help a couple of people, and at least, I'm thinking out, 2 or 3 have basically dead motherboards because of bent pins. And you consider that our Discord ain't that busy, to be fair. And it's getting on for, of the kind of the bigger technical support things that we've had on the thing today, probably about 10 or so, which have been like quite big things. For about a third of them to be down to bent pins on a motherboard, it's pretty scary stuff. Well, anyway, such is life. Yes.
Dave Aiken downwards probably.
Dave says you're looking at the high end only. The 13400 is faster than the 11900K and uses a fraction of the power. It's the gains in efficiency we see. It's not faster, and it's certainly not as it certainly has a higher latency. The 13th, all the 13th gen are slower than the 11th gen in terms of actual real world use. Now, in terms of benchmarks, yes, because you've got the E-cores. So the E-cores are, or the Cinebench cores as I call them, that's what they're there for. You run a benchmark in Cinebench and it looks great because you've got those efficiency cores which artificially bump up the numbers. The 11900K to use as a system felt way more snappy than even my 13900K, which is supposedly kind of the top of the line pretty much. And I feel actually my 13900 doesn't feel particularly fast anymore. It probably needs a reinstall, but there does seem to be an issue with the I/O transfers. So Intel decided they wanted to start going down the chiplet route, and by doing that, they started with the 12th, 13th, and 14th gen processors by basically breaking down that monolithic die into smaller clusters. So the I/O die is now broken off of the CPU, so there's a latency penalty. And sometimes, because if there's too much stuff going on the screen, or too much going on in the system, the I/O core basically goes, nah, sorry mate, and you'll get a glitch, or a temporary lag. And I've had it on my system sometimes when I've been doing video editing, or even just having a load of windows open, where I've clicked on something, and then you can almost count to 10 until the mouse comes back to life again. So there was nothing ever like that with the 9th, 10th or 11th gen Intel processors, and there definitely still isn't anything like that like on AM4. So 12th, 13th and 14th gen definitely don't feel as snappy. And even if you go to the whole thing of like chucking in a boatload of DDR5 with some extremely crazy high frequency and low CAS latency, it still feels slower. And I think a lot of people have said the same thing. But I understand what you're saying. In theory, the 13400 and the 13500, I actually had both of those, and they were nice processors and they benchmarked well and they were good. I get what you mean. And in terms of efficiency, yeah, when they're not being kind of utilized and they're just idling on the desktop, they're like 3-5 watts, something like that. So yeah, super efficient there. But that is more down to the fact that they've got a much slower E-core, which can clock itself right down to like 800 megahertz or something. So you would expect it to be using less power at that point. But any of the Intel LGA 1700 sockets, if you hammer them, they will use a lot of power, unless they're ones which are artificially limited. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Helsing says, I didn't consider the pins thing. You have a point there. You see what he did there? That's really good. Sky says, wow, that is a lot of user. Having bent pins is really not good. Yeah, and the thing is, they don't necessarily have to be terribly, like, really badly bent. Even trying, because the pins, they have a really weird thing. So you'd think, like, pins on a motherboard, when you think about it, you think, well, it's all right, it's just a pin. It's just a piece of metal which is straight. But if you look at it under a microscope, the pins are really weird. They're kind of, they go up and kind of out on a 45 degree or less angle, but they also bend back underneath themselves as well. So it's almost like
Like a zigzag?
Not really. I'm trying to think what it's like in real life that you could equate it to. But it's almost like a kind of, like a coil spring on a car. So it's kind of got that sag to it, and with like a bar going across the top of it. So it kind of, that's what pushes it down. But it's a really small thing. It's got an extremely, extremely small surface area to make contact with on the actual processor. If you look at the bottom of the processor, those little pads are
like
absolutely tiny. Yeah, they're kind of like a hook more than a pin. So that's what makes it really tricky as well, because if you get anything stuck inside that socket, because it's basically like almost like the Velcro hooking loops.
That's what
And
Bob just said.
if you get anything in there which is even remotely fabric, God help you if you like have a loose cotton
Makes you
type
want a
thing.
Velcro.
Literally, it'll get stuck in there and you pull it out and it just like uncoils the hoops and it makes an absolute mess and is essentially kind of unrepairable unless you've got a hot air station or some means of baking it and removing it, in which case, like, there's 1700 pins there on LGA 1700. 1700 pins in an area which is kind of 2 inches by 1.5 inches. Even with the best will in the world, that is heavy duty soldering. I wouldn't like to be trying it myself. And to make sure that every single one has perfect contact with not only the board but also the processor. Nah, that's just ridiculous. And I was genuinely saddened when I was hearing that AMD were going to the LGA socket. It's just a terrible, terrible thing. It really is. And I think if there was a third level player now that came out with a new processor, which wasn't on LGA, even if it was slightly slower, I would be tempted to ditch LGA socket motherboards from Intel and AMD just to go back to a processor with pins. I think it's just a much, much more sensible solution. Matthew Days there saluting Kath's Athlon pin straightening. Yeah, definitely. Because even with the Athlon processors, if you dropped an Athlon processor with pins, you drop it and it's like, oh shit, I've bent some pins. But you wouldn't panic too much because you just give it to Kath and she'd get a pencil on it or whatever, or a needle or a credit card and straighten them.
Well, that kettle just made ourselves a drink.
While the kettle made a drink. It's just, it's like, yeah, it wasn't great and you would kind of go, ugh. But you didn't think of it as being like, okay, it's game over. Which, if you bend or damage the pins on a socketed, on an LGA motherboard, Intel or AM5, it's basically game over. And actually, while Bill says I'll be right with you, Mike, right on, brother, definitely. I dare you, no, actually, I don't dare you, I challenge you. Go to eBay right now, or Craigslist, or whatever your particular thing is. I know, but they call it Craigslist because it's an American thing, so you have to call it Craigslist.
Super.
I move on.
Awesome.
Awesome. Super. Super awesome. Go to eBay or your second-hand site of choice and do a search for broken pins or LGA damaged socket motherboard. Look for that. And I will guarantee you there will be an absolute ton of them. It's just insane how many boards there are for sale on the used market right now with damaged pins. Frightening. And I bet the motherboard manufacturers are absolutely loving it because they're just keep on pumping them out. Although they're probably getting a lot of people trying to pull a fast one and send back a board for RMA with bent pins. And you know what happens if you do that with bent pins? They turn around to you and say, well, we can repair the motherboard for you for a charge of around about £80 to £100, or we can send it back to you because we don't repair damaged pins. That's on you. So yeah, it's motherboard manufacturers are quids in because basically the RMA process is like, yeah, you got a bent pin. Even if you don't think you've got a bent pin, you got a bent pin. Trying to disprove that is like very hard indeed. And for the processor manufacturers, for AMD, for Intel, how many RMAs do they get for bent pins on their processors now? I can tell you, none. Not one. Unless it's AM4 stuff or older, very, very old Intel stuff, which shouldn't be under warranty anyway. So it makes sense for the chip manufacturers because they're like, yeah, no more warranties. And for motherboard manufacturers, it's like, well, yeah, we'll just keep on churning out more and more boards. And if you keep on bending the pins, we'll keep on making boards so you can buy another one. It's horrendous. While Bill says, yeah, there's pages of them on eBay. Viali Winner says, I have an AM4 board with a damaged socket. It does happen, to be fair. I'm not going to say that AM4 boards don't get damaged sockets, but it's extremely rare. Like, very rare. Unless someone does something... Well, you've got to do something pretty special to damage a socket on an AM4 board. Dutch Jan says, I've put a lot of pins back in line. I've tried. Kath's done more than me.
That was with my bad hand at the time. I'd be better now.
Zero Defect says it's the CPU manufacturers pushing the problem over to the motherboard manufacturers. Of course it is. Because ultimately, like anything, if you can push the problem, like everything these days is like hyper compartmentalized. So rather than being like, if you're a company like AMD and there's an issue and AMD as a company would be like, well, yes, we're very sorry for this, blah, 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 blah. We will all need to work harder on this. That don't happen no more. It gets to a point where, like, if there's a problem and it's been something in the manufacturing, they're like, oh yes, we've had issues with our manufacturing, but we're going to close down that department now. And yeah, it's all good. It's fine. There's no problems here whatsoever. It's completely their fault. And all the costing is coming out of their budget. And if anyone works for the government or works in a large company, you know what it's like to be compartmentalized, because everyone's got their charge codes and everyone's got their budgets and targets to reach and all that kind of stuff. And because of that, that is why everything's getting much, much worse. Because it's always somebody else's fault, it's always somebody else's expense, and no one's ever got the money to pay for it. That is where we are.
Yes, the annoying heart emoji is gone.
The annoying heart emoji thing has gone.
We worked it out.
I managed to get rid of it. I worked out where it is. Actually, when you're creating the stream, it says live reactions. I got rid of them. You don't have to see it anymore. It's all good.
Just like that.
Matthew Day says, heart in mouth when installing my AM5 CPU. I know. And I think as well, that is why I'm slightly disillusioned with the whole PC industry at the moment, because I've been messing around with these AM5 motherboards this week, trying to work out what was going on from the stream from last week. And every time I had to do anything with the processor, it was always like, I'm frightened. I'm actually genuinely scared that I'm going to damage the motherboard. And you shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be that kind of experience. PC building and being a PC enthusiast should be a joyous occasion, something to be celebrated, to get your hands dirty, to get in there, to do modifications, to try and use different thermal pastes or different CPU coolers or different retention brackets and whatever it is you want to do. It should be a very enjoyable experience. But I think now with these very, very delicate motherboards, it's just like...
But is it to stop you messing around? Because remember when they used to make you ring up Windows every time you did
yeah. It could be to stop you messing around with stuff. But then that makes no sense at all, because the whole PC kind of market is based on customization and actually modification. So I don't think it's to stop people messing around with them. Even though the PC aftermarket, like the things that we're into, is like a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of the PC market. They basically they don't like us, they don't care. We're such a small fraction of the market. We're nothing. Yes, Kath? David. Sorry, I'm new here and just arrived. Are you saying that AM4 is better than AM5? Yeah, I would. AM4 certainly has a lot of things going for it that AM5 doesn't. Actually, there's a very quick, like...
But now AM5's out.
AM5 is out. It's faster. In theory, it's kind of has more features. It supports faster memory. But it's more expensive.
But would you go AM4 now as a build or AM5? I think that's more the question.
If I was building a PC now, it depends what it is that you're building. If you want to still build a modest budget PC, then it's got to be AM4. It really has. Because you're going to spend basically half the money on RAM, you're going to spend half the money on the processor, and you're probably going to spend half the money on the motherboard. So some of those three core things, so the motherboard, processor, and RAM, you're going to spend basically 50% less on those three things, which is a pretty massive saving. And being that arguably a lot of the people that are building and buying PCs are PC gamers, you're going to be looking at your graphics card much more than you are going to be looking at your actual kind of subsystem. It is important, but if you're playing games, what is more important? A modern platform or a fast graphics card? I think most of you can probably answer that for yourselves, but for those of you that can't, it's a clear answer. Graphics card is far more important for gaming than basically any other component in your computer. Yes, they all have to work together in tandem to some extent, but the GPU is kind of like your bottleneck. So your graphics card is only ever going to be able to do what it can do, regardless of you having a fast CPU, tons and tons of RAM, PCI Express Gen 4 or Gen 5, M.2 storage, fastest internet, whatever, makes no difference. You could have a 2000 watt power supply, doesn't make a difference. It's your graphics card which ultimately is going to be responsible for your frame rates in your games to a more realistic extent. There are going to be some like weird case examples. So if you put a 4090 with like a dual core Pentium, clearly, yeah, that's not going to work out. But hopefully you understand where I'm coming from. The graphics card, that's why it's called a graphics card. It makes your graphics. Viali 100 says AM4 is fast enough to run anything for anyone. Definitely. I would think so. Dave Aiken says it's Generation 1 though. Think back to the B350s and Ryzen 7 1800X. RAM nightmare. It was a RAM nightmare, but it didn't have the socket nightmare because we knew where we stood with that. So you could fault find on your system. You could take out your CPU, put it into another computer, test it on there, test it with a different configuration, and you were pretty much okay. Yeah, if you dropped your processor or the AMD stock fan stuck onto the CPU, you'd be like trying to get the damn thing off. But ultimately, you knew that the platform was actually quite resilient. Whereas with AM5 now, you take a processor off, and unless you put like the cap straight on your motherboard and put your CPU straight in the clamshell, it's like you're taking your life in your own hands. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't think it offers enough benefits to be a valid platform, other than the fact that the processors are faster. And more memory. Faster memory. But then it isn't that much faster. Anyway, moving on from there. What else have we got? What else have we got?
Panos Jr.
Panos Jr. Hey Mike, which GPU would you recommend for an i5 2500?
Budget around 80, could go to 100 max.
That's a tough one. I would probably say like an RX 580 would probably be a good pairing with an i5 2500. I think i5 2500 is going to be PCI Express Gen 3. I don't think it was Gen 2, I think it's Gen 3. So yeah, an RX 580 probably be a good shout.
David's replied.
David, thank you very much for the explanation. I'm about to build my gaming PC with a Ryzen 7600. See, the Ryzen 7600 is a good processor, but it's really close to the 5800X. And price-wise, there's probably a little bit between them. I think the 5800X is going to be a little bit cheaper. So it depends how long you're going to keep your system for as well. If you're doing a build and it's going to last you and you're going to keep it and you're going to do partial upgrades now and then you kind of got to go for AM5. But if you just want the bang for buck and you kind of build PCs regularly often, or you can see another PC on the horizon, it's actually probably worth getting an AM4. O'Reilly says i5 2500 is PCIe Gen 2.0. Is it really? You should be alright with the RX 580 or 480. I can't even think of any PCI Express Gen 2 graphics cards, to be honest. Shiny Helmet, nice name. AM5 will be okay if it lasts as long as AM4. That's the only issue with AM4 now, it's a dead platform. That is very true. It is, well, it's not a dead platform, but I understand what you're saying by that. Dead as in, it doesn't have a future. It's on life support, but it's not dead. I think a dead platform would be like AM3 or AM3 Plus, or the FM2 Plus, that sort of stuff. I think AM4 still has a life ahead of it, and AMD are still making processors. So clearly they've got stuff in the foundries being hammered out as we speak. So being that they're still making processors, they're still making chipsets, they will do for the foreseeable. So I think there's probably a good 2 years or more until AM4 loses relevancy entirely. In which case it will be then like an older Intel system where kind of it's not going to hold a huge amount of value. It might even be longer than that, 2-3 years, might even be as much as 5 years. It depends what happens. Viali says, still getting BIOS updates for AM4, so okay at the moment. Yeah, definitely, I think that is one of the key things. Because AM4, when AM4 first started, everybody, and I mean everybody in the motherboard markets, and basically surrounding things, everyone expected AMD to be bust within a year when AM4 launched. But they didn't count on it being as good as it was. Now, even though it was somewhat flawed, it was really competitive. So that sparked interest. And it wasn't until the B450 chipset came out that AMD really did find their stride and started to be kind of like, hang on, there's a disturbance in the force here. So it took a while for them to kind of pick up, which nobody expected. Even I think Lisa Su at the time, I think she was brought in or changed positions around about that time for the whole Ryzen architecture, which no one else was interested in. Look at Dell. Dell, even when Ryzen first came out, the 1000 series, and I think even possibly the 2000 series, I don't think Dell computers would make an AM4 motherboard or AM4 system. I think it took a long time before even Dell got involved with making AM4 systems because they just didn't seem that they were going to be relevant. Nobody got invested. And actually on the B350 motherboard side of things, there was hardly any boards available. It was really slim pickings. And some of the higher end boards as well, the X370 boards, there weren't many about. There was probably about 3 from MSI, maybe 4. Whereas you look at AM5 boards now or AM4 boards now, how many is there for each tier? Hundreds. It's ridiculous.
Go up one.
Go up one where?
On your questions.
I'm at the bottom.
Oh.
We're looking at David. Sorry, Kath's just had a stroke.
Is it normal?
Gratuitous. Is it normal for my 7800 X3D temp spike to ATC for a few seconds and then goes back to normal temps using AIO? Yes, it can do. If you've got an ASUS board, I would suggest going into the BIOS and turning off the ASUS Performance Enhancement. That's probably set to auto or enabled. If it is, disable it, because that will just push ridiculous amounts of voltage into the processor, and it's horrible. Why are you doing that?
Don't forget your Discord button if you need
If that doesn't work, you can join our Discord and we can discuss it further. Link is in the chat. Kath was pointing downwards.
Just reminding you, you've got it.
Yeah. Don't forget to click on the links below.
And then David at the bottom. Well, up a bit now.
John Sullivan says what they've managed to squeeze out of AM4 is genius. Definitely.
And welcome back to John Sullivan.
Welcome back to John Sullivan, yes. John's not been around for a little while, so nice to see you back in the chat.
David.
Charles Ballard says, I think the 8088 microprocessor is fairly easy to consider dead as a doornail. Rung down the curtain and gone to join the choir. Invisible, it's an X processor. I don't know. I watched quite a lot of the retro stuff, and still seeing some of those being talked about, and actually people making like new versions of it. So I don't know. I think with most things, as long as there's enough interest, that'll keep it alive. Kit Bob up Periscope. I'll have to give Bob the. That didn't work. That's better.
Don't want the bottle opener then.
No. Ugly Bob says, John is a legend. I'm one of the OG Mubber lovers. Yeah, it was. It's been a while. John Sullivan says, we did that at school. I still do it. This is like school for me. Just I'm more on the teacher's side of the desk now.
Did you see David? I'm thinking about keeping the PC for a few years.
David says, yes, I'm thinking about keeping the PC for a few years. I just sold mine I had built in 2018. So from what I understand, it's worth going for the Ryzen 7600. Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't say you've done cramp. I don't think you've done anything wrong there. I think 7600 is great. In fact, I've got the 7700X is now in that one behind me. I've got the 7700 non-X on the Gaming Plus, I think. Did I leave it on there? I probably did. Yeah, I left it on there. Because it's safer to leave the processor on the board than it is to try and faff around with the plastic stuff and destroy it. And then the Gaming Edge Wi-Fi's got the... I don't think that's actually got anything on it at all at the moment. But yeah, 7600, cracking processor. Yeah, it's hard to really dislike them, other than the fact that the price of the combined system. So the motherboard, DDR5 RAM, I think still has quite a way to go until it becomes low enough price that it makes AM4 and DDR4 in general just not really viable. DDR5 prices have been creeping up recently. Some of you have probably seen the videos we've done already on the Crucial Pro RAM, which actually is in the PC, as you'll notice, because there's not a lot of RGB going on there. So we've got the Crucial Pro RAM actually in the Stream PC now, and it's been really volatile pricing recently. It went down to £89 for a 32 gig set a couple of days ago. This week, it went back up to about 95 or 96. Then I had an email from Amazon saying it was on offer at 109. It's like, what's going on? But yeah, DDR5 prices are all over the place. I think there was some speculation that because of the there was an earthquake in Taiwan, I believe. I'm not too sure if that... Did I imagine that, or is that true? I think that is true. There was an earthquake somewhere. Yeah, it was Taiwan, I'm sure it was. And basically because of that, RAM production basically dropped off. But then other reports were saying that the factory which was doing the DRAM, which did have the problems, they resumed production within 24 hours. So whether or not... There were some companies which were actually stopping posting live pricing for DDR RAM modules, which is always a little bit weird. But anyway. Ugly Bob says you were right, there was a quake. Thank you, Bob. William Bodie? Yes. William Bodie, question. After the start of MUB till now, did Lady Kath learn about PCs? I did... After the start of MUB, did Lady Kath learn a lot about PCs? Well, Kath has been learning about PCs on and off, I suppose, because of my interest in it since the mid-90s. So we got married in 96. That's a So a wedding present to ourselves was
That's for my mum
yeah,
and dad.
yeah, a wedding present to ourselves from Kath's mum and dad. We bought ourselves our first proper computer. So had some friends build a PC for us from Little Monkey Computers. Dave Dibben and Gary, I want to say Wallace, but that's not Gary.
Oh, it's Kate Walker.
Gary, might have been Gary Walker.
Gary's taken it.
Was it Gary Walker?
Might have been, I don't know. No, I don't think it was.
No. Anyway, yeah, two guys that I worked with at Wix. They were actually kitchen planners. They did like the kitchen planners. So if you go into a Wix store to get your kitchen designed or whatever, they were the guys who did it. But they also had a sideline of building computers, which was a tiny little thing. They just did it for a bit of a laugh and extra couple of quid. So we got them to build a computer. Went through all that. Got a 486 SX33, I think it was, first of all. And yeah, that's kind of where we got into it. So
Because within a week Mike had broken
Yeah,
it, and it cost us
I broke it very
practically
quickly.
a third of the price to get it fixed again.
It had Windows 95, and yeah, I had to get them to fix it because I broke it. I didn't know anything about computers really, especially not Windows. So yeah, went through the thing of bought a installation set of Windows 95 on floppy disks. There were 32 of them, I think, or 33 of them, to do a full Windows 95 install from floppy disks. And kind of through killing the computer and then having to reinstall it all and configure it, and keep on going through that thing, installing drivers. I learned the hard way through mistakes, and Kath wanting to probably use the computer, and also obviously spending time together. We would sit there and pass me a disc, pass me a disc.
Mavis Beacon typing.
Yeah. So
What else did we have? Rubbish.
we
Horoscopes.
yeah, we learned the kind of the hard way.
Ribbon printer.
Yeah, we had a dot matrix ribbon printer, color one. We also had Mavis Beacon teaches
Teachers typing.
Mavis Beacon teaches typing. We also had the official UK National Lottery application, so you could put in the numbers and look at history, so you could try and win the lottery easily. It was very sad, and that was in the days of things like Norton Utilities. So
And chat room.
because we had a
Chat room online.
absolutely tiny hard drive, you'd use the partitioning software to create a compressed disk on the side of your disk, and just horrendous stuff. Very, very early days. So yeah, we kind of, Kath has picked up stuff. She was more into the games back in the day. We used to do things like, clip art stuff, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was it was fun times, and I think Kath has picked up quite a bit. She manages to use her computer. She doesn't want to use a computer. She doesn't like using a computer. She actually hates computers. Doesn't want anything to do with them. But unfortunately, that is not really that easy.
Ugly Bob, it's like being married to a builder.
Yeah, it is.
It's not an advantage.
It's no. Skystalker says, I've forgotten some of that. Thanks for the trip down memory lane, Mike. Well, that was the thing in the very early, in the late 90s, when Windows 95 had been released, and prior to USB being a thing, and before Windows 98 SE and Windows 98, it was a hard thing, and learning things like how to use a parallel port for your printer, and if you wanted a scanner, so you could actually get information into your computer, you generally didn't have USB, so you'd have to have a parallel port scanner, which then daisy chained into your printer. And then you had to learn things like interrupts and IRQs, and plug and play wasn't really a thing then, so you had to set up your IRQs, because basically Windows 95 was built on DOS. So you had still all that DOS stuff in the background, like IRQs, DMAs. Yeah, it was very tricky at the time. And also there wasn't the internet as such. So you couldn't just go, I don't know how to do this, I'm going to Google it. You had to actually buy like computer magazines to learn stuff from, or have someone you knew who could do that stuff.
I think we have dogs and cats as well, don't we? What was that?
There's a thing on there I can click on like. Never knew. I didn't know you could do that. On the super chats, you can click on the like button now. Glenn sent a super chat in there, 420, being that it is 420 Blazing Day. Thank you very much, Glenn. He says, I don't tell dad jokes. When I do, he laughs. Boom, boom. Tss. For that, I'm going to have to give it a... Hey, it's working. Let's turn it up and frighten the cats. Ah, dear. Duckman says there were BBSs. I never ever used a BBS. Never ever. I don't know. I think I was more... I liked graphical interfaces. DOS scared me. BBSs and anything text-based generally I didn't like or didn't want to use. I liked to use a graphical interface. Panos says, thanks for the tip. I did buy the RX 580 earlier for the i5 2500. Found it for £50. The last upgrade is the PSU, as the GameMax GP400A won't be enough. I'm thinking of a 500 to 550 watts. Any recommendations? Yeah, definitely. For the 500 watt power supply, the GameMax Rampage. Really good power supplies. I like them a lot. If you don't mind the noise, go for the GameMax RGB power supplies. They're gold rated, modular, and generally cheap as chips, but the fan is a bit noisy on them. But if you want one which is quiet, runs well, 80 plus bronze, decent warranty, and pretty silent, then you've got the oh, what's it called? Bloody hell, my brain. GameMax Rampage. Hey, there's a thing on the side of Glenn's thing I can click on as well. To love it. Can I unlove it? Yeah. I'll love it again. Sorry, I didn't realise I could do that. Why is it?
I'm going to go and do the others.
There's new things. Oh, Cav's doing it. I was just supposed to do that. Great minds think alike.
We are like clones of each other. Oh, I can't go any further back.
Oh, yeah. Buggers.
We do it.
Rick H says, plug and pray Windows 95. Oh, it was. Windows 95 was... it was a... Well, I suppose it's because of my age partly as well. I think Windows 95, 98 era was an absolutely amazing time to have been involved in the PC, kind of the whole thing taking off. Because I'd always been into consoles previously, and computers, like earlier computers, like BBCs, Electrons, Spectrums, Commodores, all that kind of stuff. Then I kind of stepped away from it more so, then into consoles maybe in the early 90s. And then when the PC started becoming a thing, it's like, well, this is like, clearly this is much better, and it's a more open ecosystem, and it's not a one-trick pony. Because back then you had things like the Mega Drive, Sega Mega Drive in the early 90s. You had things like the Dreamcast, which was kind of blurring the lines a little bit, but essentially consoles were consoles. A PC could play games but do everything else as well. It's just a matter of how much money you wanted to throw at it. So yeah, I think I was really glad to have got involved as early as I did. The early 90s into the start of the 2000s, when the PC boom really did kick in to a massive extent, way more than I think people were expecting. And it went from the time of, like, if you had a computer at home, you were either a business person or, I don't know, a scientist or something along those lines, to being like, everyone's going to have a PC in their home. And that actually happening, it was nuts, absolutely nuts. And it was, yeah, watching that whole progression. At the time, it seemed like it was taking forever, really slow, and you were kind of like counting down the months to the next operating system release or the next technology release. And then we had this really compressed time between probably 88 and 2002.
That's when Uranus was in Aries.
Uranus was in Aries. And then
That's a tech era.
it's just like a tech era. It's boom!
That's
It exploded.
years.
Windows 98 SE, Windows Millennium, Windows 2000, mobile phones, the internet becoming extremely accessible and widespread, broadband becoming a thing. It was just, yeah, you had all the file share things, your Napsters, LimeWire. It was just a really amazing time. And to have been there and experienced it, and actually watching other documentaries now about how the era evolved and how PCs came to be, and it's like, yeah, I was there. It was great. It was great. It really was. So having those kind of golden era times where technology really advanced in such a rate and was very, very cool, to where now we've got what seems like backward regressions in terms of stability, performance, power efficiency, all those things. It's just like, I think that's why I find it so disappointing and so depressing, that it's like we've come so far so quickly, and it seems over the last, I don't know, 5-10 years, it's just stale, stagnant. Nothing's really changed.
That's because Taurus is in Uranus now.
Taurus is probably in my Uranus.
Just expect the unexpected,
Yes.
apparently. When did it go in there? 2018, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it
For
was.
7 years. So we've really got one more year of it now.
Ordinary Dude says, I think that LJ 1700 is... I don't think that LJ 1700 is bad at all. I do have issue with what Microsoft has done with Windows 11 over the last year. It's just trash at this point. I don't know. I quite like Windows 11. I know that's probably... I'm in a minority there. And funny enough, actually, I'll tell you, this is an interesting story. Now, I've always been someone who... I try to stand up for the underdog. That has always been my position in life in general. In any instance of life, whether it be in the street, whether it be online, whether it be in the supermarket, whether it be anything. I generally tend to support the underdog, or the less favourable, or the less popular. I don't know what it is. I just seem to have that kind of, that's my thing. I always seem to do it. If there's ever a bet on anything, I'm going to be betting on the kind of the less likely to win, let's say. So take that as somewhat of a preface. So I made a video on how to remove or disable Windows Copilot, which if you, well, just from a sample size of people in the chat here now, just let me know in the chat, do you like or want to have Windows Copilot installed on your PC? Just a simple yes or no. Be absolutely fine. Totally fine.
We're thumbs up and thumbs down.
Yeah, you can't thumbs up or thumbs down. You can try and do that somehow if you want to, because we haven't got a love button. Oh, you can use the emoticons, yeah. Just a quick show of hands. There's, I'm not sure how many of you are in the chat, but probably enough to get an idea of the general thing. I think, in general, Windows Copilot has been not particularly well received. It's quite handy, and I understand it as a tool, and because of the AI buzz, people are interested to try these things out. I get that. I understand that completely. So, my entire standing in all walks of life again is choice. I don't like having anything rammed on my throat, being told what I can and cannot do, what I should and shouldn't like, what I can and can't uninstall or remove. That bothers me. I like choice. There's instances where I forego choice because of functionality, such as I use an iPhone, which is very locked down. But if something's going to be installed, generally they've learned from the backlash of the whole U2 thing with the album, that by just installing what you like onto someone's PC is not okay. So Windows Copilot, the beta version, has been installed on pretty much every installation of Windows 10 and Windows 11 that is in the wild. If you've run Windows Update, you have Windows Copilot. You didn't necessarily ask for it, you didn't pay for it, it is put there. You are forced into having that on your computer. So, for me, that itself is a pretty egregious breach of trust. I can understand with a browser, because the browser is somewhat interlinked to the rest of the operating system. After all, Windows itself and the hyperlinks and all that kind of stuff and how we navigate around folders in Windows Explorer is kind of based on Microsoft Edge, etc., etc. Or Windows Explorer, or Internet Explorer, I should say, sorry. Hence the Explorer name. So you have Explorer for files, Internet Explorer for the internet, and the two kind of blurred at points. So, going back to the Copilot thing. Now, if there was an option in the Windows control panel or apps where I could just click on Copilot, uninstall, and it would remove it in its entirety from my computer, I would be more than happy. And I think the majority of Windows users would probably be in the same boat. It's like, yeah, it's been installed, much like things like Grammarly or the clip art thing or the new video editing software for Windows. When you do a fresh install, it's there. You click on the start button, you right click, remove link or remove program, uninstall, and it's gone. That's it, job done. Yes, it was there. If you want to use it, you can use it. Choice ultimately is the thing. So there was a gentleman who actually went into that video and was quite vocal and said, how dare you tell people to remove this or how to remove this software? It's very, I'm paraphrasing now because I haven't got it in front of me, but they were like, huh?
Do you want it?
No, I think I've removed them from the channel because it was just getting out of hand. But basically they were saying, how dare you do this? It's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with Copilot. Why on earth would you get someone to mess around in the registry to remove this? It's absolutely fine. If you don't want to use it, just don't use it. And my response initially was, okay, fair enough. Like, if you want to use it, that's fine. But there's a lot of people out there that don't want it on their computer. So I'm basically helping them to achieve something that Microsoft won't let them do. Which I think is a pretty sane response. And there was kind of like these back and forwards, and they're saying, well,
Everyone
you
wants
should,
it.
yeah, you should, yeah, they were like, everybody wants it. Why would you not want Copilot? It's a great piece of software, and it's very helpful and productive. It's like, well, yeah, it might be, but if you don't want it, you don't want it. And it did get to the point of them saying, well, you've already bought it, you've paid for it, it's yours. It's like, yeah, but I don't want it. That's the whole point. I don't necessarily want it. You might not want it. It's all about choice, ultimately. That is my thing. Yes, it might be good. It might be handy. It might be free. It generally isn't, because if anything's free, you are the product. And from what a lot of people assume, rightly or wrongly, and I don't know if this is true or not, I'm guessing it is, but all of these Copilot AI things and all of the GPT stuff, every single bit of data you put in there is being stored. Now, whether it relates to you personally or as a demographic or whatever it is data scraping. However you look at it. They are training the next iterations of AI based on your input. So you are basically being a beta tester for their next product, which might be charged for, whatever. So there's all these kind of ethical and political reasons why you may or may not want to get involved with it. That's fine, that's up to you. That is your choice. But all I'm saying is to this person, ultimately, I believe in freedom and of choice. And I said, ultimately, it comes down to the point of, if you think that no one should have the right to uninstall this program, that is a matter of choice. And if you do not agree with people being able to have choices, then this conversation is kind of over, because I don't agree or kind of like anybody like that. If you think that people shouldn't have choices, that's a really bad position to be in. And I said, I hope you don't feel that way, because I think that's just a sad place to be. Like, nobody wants to be oppressed into doing what they're told to do. That's why we have freedom, why we have wars and conflicts and stuff, to retain our certain freedoms. So yeah, that kind of winds me up. And I'm still guessing, I haven't read the comments yet, but I'm guessing that pretty much most people would be against having it force installed on them. I think that is a fair point.
Well, Bill says he hasn't got it.
Well, Bill hasn't got it. Good for
I
you.
didn't know I had it until George said, "Why have you got it?"
Yeah. If you have got it, you'll notice on your taskbar there'll be an icon somewhere. You'll have a new icon.
Where the date is.
By the date, possibly on Windows 10. I haven't got it on mine because I did a video on how to get rid of it, and it seems to have worked.
But like living with a builder, it's still on mine.
Yeah. So
I
anyway,
probably hate it more than you.
Dave Aiken says, yet another marketing flop like Bing or Cortana. That's the thing. It's like, I'm not saying that it's a bad product necessarily, and if you like it and if you make use of it, then that's absolutely fantastic. That's what it's there for. And like anything, when Microsoft does these updates and they add new programs in, like they've added the new Outlook for Windows, which if you use Outlook or you've used Outlook in the past and you like it and it's now free, it's like amazing, wicked, brilliant stuff. That's what we want to see. But there is a choice. You don't have to install it. You can choose to use the old Outlook, or you can choose to use the old mail apps, or you can choose to use Gmail, or you can choose to use your web browser, or Thunder, what was it, Firefox, or
God, yeah,
all those stuff.
Sorry, Apple, when they forced you to have that U2
Yeah.
got rid of that straight away.
But again, that is choice. With Copilot, it's like, this isn't your choice anymore. We are installing this, and we're not going to give you a way of getting rid of it. That to me sucks. And the fact that it has a built-in speaker thing, so it listens, is even more of a security concern. This being that how Microsoft is usually pretty piss poor in actually securing the operating system, who knows who's listening to your recordings? Even if your AI thing isn't doing anything, it's still listening because it's waiting for a trigger word. Like the same with Cortana, the same with the Google Home system, the Amazon systems. They're all there listening. They're just waiting for you to say that trigger word to kind of go, hello, what can I do for you? But they're listening all the time. So that is my thought on it. And actually, I have actually used Copilot a couple of times, and actually it was relatively useful. It actually allowed me to find out Brytek's name and his wife's name. Not that you should look that up, but it was available. So it does trawl data into ways that you probably don't want it to. And it will give you answers to things, again, that you may not want to know or are supposed to know. But if the information's out there, AI will trawl it and it will bring it back up. So more of a kind of a warning to others that obviously not all that glitters is gold. And if you've got information on the internet at anywhere, point or time, it's only a matter of time before AI actually has that information on you and can then retrieve it like that. Which for some people is probably going to be quite a scary thing. Especially those that like anonymity or like to keep their personal lives personal. But if you've ever filled out a document online, you've ever registered a website, you've ever registered a domain, you've ever done basically anything.
Spoken on the internet, I'll have your voice.
Yeah, voiceal recognition. That's a new one. Well done, Kath. I'm gonna get that on a t-shirt. We've got voiceal recognition. Jane. Kath's a Jane Doe. William Bodie says, I am Locutus of Mike. Resistance is futile. Skystalker says, I do want choice. If I decide to take it off, I will go to Mike's video and do it. That is, again, yeah, that's the thing. It's a choice thing. And the thing is, like, Microsoft is a massive company. I think at the moment it is actually the most valuable company on the market, on the stock market, I think, from market capital. Could be wrong, could be right. But yeah, Microsoft should be doing it better. They don't have to, obviously, because they've got so much money and they're into so many things outside of the computing area or arena. And also, they are investing billions and billions and billions of pounds or dollars into building AI farms. Now, clearly, think about it from a customer, or think of it from a stockholder. So you've got a big amount of shares in Microsoft, And at the AGM meeting or update meeting, they say, right, we're going to be investing X amount of billion into procuring these server farms to help with the next generation of AI. And Johnny at the back of the AGM meeting puts his hand up. Excuse me, you're investing all this money, all these billions of pounds into this AI farm. Great technology, we like it, we're Microsoft, but what's in it for us? And that is the question that you should be asking yourself. Like, they're spending literally billions of dollars on these AI farms, which they are allowing us to use the tools. They're forcing the tools on us. So where is the value? Where do they make their money? Simple question. And you don't necessarily have to answer it, you just have to think about it. If they're sinking millions and millions of pounds and dollars into these AI farms, the hardware, the ecosystem to allow this to work on billions of computers around the world, what's in it for them? What does Microsoft do? What is their company? How do they make money? Advertising? Targeted advertising? Software? Services? And web hosting? So out of those things, which one do you think relates more to AI and the server farms that you are putting all your data into? Advertising? Targeted advertising? Seems likely.
Are we linked to supermarkets with our membership cards?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
And the NHS?
Yeah, that's true. Skystalker says, I believe I'm getting value out of the new AI tools. I am a bit concerned how I am paying for it. Yeah, I think that is a very sensible thing to say and think. Like anything, it's free. Like when you're using Google or your search engine of choice, you ultimately know that Google as a company, what do you buy from Google? Like some of you might buy memberships on Mike's Unboxing. That's very good of you. Thank you very much. You might send super chats. But ultimately, the way you pay for YouTube and Google is by your data. So when you go to YouTube, you type in short people dancing. So immediately your cookies and your profile, your digital picture, they know that you like little people dancing. So immediately they're out on the phone. Yeah, we got this guy. He's into little people dancing. Yeah, you interested? They're like, and the people who sell these little clothing things, they're like, hell yeah, give us his details. Next thing you know, on your screen, there's an advertisement for little people dancing costumes. There is your chain.
So you're a little person, though, does it?
No, not necessarily. But
you wouldn't fit in it.
That is the way that it works. So you type in something, they know that about you, that data gets sold. The person that buys that data then targets you for an advert.
Tesco.
You might then purchase something and the circle is complete.
I.e. Tesco and 4% more customers and 300% bigger profit.
What's that got to do with what we're talking about?
How they're selling your membership data from your club card thing.
That's debatable. Zero Defect says you've been looking at my web history. No, but it's the same thing. Like, Tony Moore says, so that's why I keep on getting ads for XXL condoms. If you will search for biggest dickus, that is it. Captain Mike says, Mike, I'm curious to see what ads you're seeing based on your searches. I'm actually really lucky that my searches are generally all roughly the same thing. So YouTube, my adverts at the moment, now I might be on my own here, but almost every other advert for me recently has been from Boolies, the chair people, which, I hate to spoil it, but I'm not sure if you can see that in the side of the screen there. Yes, you can. I've got a Boolies chair already. I don't need another one. I've only got one set of cheeks, isn't it? Anyway, so that is how it works. I do a search for PC gaming chairs at some point, and then next thing you know, the rest of my life, I'm getting adverts for the Boolies Brands Day, whatever they call it.
And the head shaver we used to get a lot.
I used to get Skull Shaver adverts all the time. What other ones did I get? There used to be ones about investments. That's because I stupidly looked at the prices of gold and silver.
Trying to let him out. 'Cause the others are
Who's it?
Otis.
Yeah.
Go on then, give me a kiss.
Are they all out?
I think so.
Okay.
I'll see them come back.
Captain White says I picked up a Boolies chair for £100 in February. That's bloody awesome. They're not cheap chairs. No, I think they're about £300, £270, something like that. So if you got it for £100, you've done really well.
Co-pilot don't know if you've got a lot of hair on your head. It remains a mystery.
Yeah.
As your channel primarily focuses on tech and product content.
Yeah, so it's crap then, isn't it? Do you not get offered new darts? No. And also don't get offered any memorabilia from the Mummy. John says, is Boolies good for your ghoulies? So far, all intact and operational, sir. Kath looked round then, I see her at my peripheral.
I wondered if you were using it at the moment, because you used to swap, but you haven't for a long time, have you?
No.
But
Normally I swap chairs, so in the colder months, in the winter, I generally tend to use a fabric chair, because in the summer, with a fabric chair, it gets really hot and sweaty, and of course being fabric, it isn't that resilient. So I'm being fat, yeah. So yeah, it's not great. So I prefer to use a leatherette style chair in the hot months, because they are kind of wipe clean, no problems there, and actually feel a bit cooler. Well, no, I don't know that. What's the one I got in there? The Triple X. Is it Triple X?
And that one's more cat proof because they were little kittens, weren't they? They couldn't jump up on it. They had to
Anyway,
scrap it up.
I get on. Wild Bill says I saw your review on that chair. It's a good chair. But yeah, that's what I'm saying is, obviously, the AI thing. Just be careful what you're searching for, because yeah, it's all fun and games, and you might make up some weird stuff, but ultimately that data relates to you and what you've searched for. So at some point you're going to get targeted for that in some way, shape or form, possibly. Ugly Bob's coming with £2 there. It says, hi Rachel. Who the bloody hell's Rachel? Can't see anyone called Rachel in there. Or was that Raquel? I have no idea. You lost me there, Bob. O'Reilly says, I really dislike faux leather. It depends what chair it is. Some are really bad, but some are better.
But I think the cats know which ones are fake and which are real, because they attack the fake ones, but not the real ones.
Only Bob says, Rachel is my life. Okay. I'm confused now. William Bodie says, I shall only be judged by God, not by Google. Yeah, Google's kind of like a backup. Second in command, maybe. uBlock Origin has stopped all ads on my PC. I still don't use an ad blocker. I think it's because I do, well, I don't know. I would feel, personally, I would feel like I was, not contradictive. What's the thing when you say something and do another? Is that contradictive?
Yeah.
There's another word for it. I can't think what the other word is.
Two-faced.
Yeah, like two-faced, that thing. Being that I'm a YouTuber and I have my wages effectively paid by your kind contributions and also by YouTube AdSense. Hypocrite, that's the one. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you very much, Last Man Standing. Yes, I wouldn't want to be a hypocrite by receiving payment from Google AdSense for the work I do on YouTube, but then blocking the ads, so I effectively aren't helping to pay for other creators, because I understand that it's kind of, that is the way it works. My search history, the advertising, blah blah blah, it's all part of that circle. So I do understand, and I suppose I am being slightly hypocritical in saying I don't want to use Copilot because they're scraping my data, yet I'm quite happy to let YouTube and Google scrape your data to pay my wages. But ultimately that's a consensual thing. You kind of know what you're getting into, and like, you can use ad blockers if you want to. That is it. But for me personally, I think because I understand that I am receiving money from this whole thing, it would be quite hypocritical for me to kind of suggest using an ad blocker. If you want to use an ad blocker, hey, that's fine. That's your prerogative altogether. I choose not to because of what I do. And actually, I would say sometimes they're genuinely actually quite interesting or informative ads. So I think I'd miss them. Kath's mum used to always do that, fast forward through the ads in between programs.
We used to do it.
And
we wouldn't watch anything.
Sometimes I wouldn't mind an advert. And sometimes like the start of an advert comes on and then it gets fast forwarded, and that annoys me because like, oh, I was just getting into that. I was just being mind washed. No, brainwashed. Mind programmed. You know what I mean? William Blody. Question: is it true that UK want to make it very expensive to drive into London and other? Yeah, it's already done. Yeah, London is London, Bristol, Manchester, various other places have all got a ULEZ thing, ultra low emission zone. So if your car doesn't fit the bill, basically electric, it costs you anything between, I think it's £8 and £20 or something to drive per day into that area. When I hear the phrase ULEZ, it's just okay. Question: would anyone want to go? Why would anyone want to go into London? That's a very good question.
Same for Bristol.
I went to London once, and I don't think I'm ever likely to go again. I think it's extremely unlikely I'll ever go to London.
You can go on the London Eye at Weston.
Yeah, the London Eye is at Weston, and soon it's going to be in Scotland.
Aren't they taking it down, or how? They already.
It's taken down now. Yeah. Ira Wolfman says install Chrome OS, but then I prefer Windows minus everything Microsoft. I actually don't. That's the thing. The whole point of Windows, especially, I guess towards the earlier days, was the fact that going back to installing Windows on the 3.5-inch floppy drives. If you install Windows 95 on floppy drives, you had the point in the setup process where there was all these tick boxes, and it's like, do you want to install games? Do you want to install Network Neighborhood? Do you want to install music? Do you want to install multimedia support? Do you want to install TCP/IP? Do you want to install all these other things? And there's basically a tick box for a bunch of different stuff. And depending on how many boxes you ticked is how long it was going to take because of how many extra disks you needed. But you could bypass pretty much most of it and have a really, really basic, basically empty installation of Windows 95. I think you could do it to some extent in Windows 98 as well. Not SE. I think SE changed that. But yeah, that was like, you had choice. And I think that's all the majority of the people want, is choice. But I can understand from their point of view, from marketing, they probably do market research and they ask a bunch of people who probably aren't computer savvy, and they're like, do you just want to install Windows and click go? Or do you want to get involved with doing this, this, and this? And they probably do all that research and they find out that the majority of people couldn't give a rat's ass and they just want to press a button and use Windows. Which I understand, but it would be nice to have some choices. McTony says, Ulez sounds like the end of a Jim Davison joke. That's where I was going. William Bodie says, even in Bristol, yeah. Well, technically, I don't. Although our postal address is Bristol, there is a very fine line between Bristol and South Gloucestershire, or South Gloucestershire, South Gloucester, oh, pissing on, South Glos, where we live. So it's about Glos, South Glos. That's what people call it on the when you write out an envelope or something, or you send something off. It's like, I cannot be arsed to put in South Gloucestershire, Gloucestershire.
Gloss.
Oh yeah, S Glos.
That's what everyone put. It's not.
I put South Glos.
Gloss.
Glos. Glos is short for Gloucestershire.
Worcestershire sauce.
Oh, it's too far away. Anyway, moving on. So the border between Bristol City and South Gloucestershire Council is about a mile away from here. So we are right on the very outer edge of South Gloucestershire. Technically we don't live in Bristol, although there is the Bristol area, but different county councils. It's confusing, but I suppose like if you live on the outskirts of London, you aren't in London, but you're in the London area, if that makes sense. Hey Mike, can you say Worcestershire? Worcestershire. I love hearing Americans pronouncing the names. They do worse than me.
We just call it
Only
Worcester
just
sauce.
Worcester sauce, yeah. If you pronounce Worcestershire as you see it, it's difficult because you break it up. So it's Worcestershire. That's how most Americans break it up. And when I heard someone talking recently, they're saying like, oh yeah, there's something in South Gloucestershire. And it's like, wow, you've broken it up worse than I did. That says something. Oh dear. Anyway, moving on. Viali says, when my wife came over, she wanted to see London, so I took her to Brighton. To be honest with you, if you wanted to go to London, you don't really need to. Basically, any inner city these days, they all look the bloody same. So if you just go to somewhere where it's nearby a church or cathedral, you can say, yeah, it's London. There's McDonald's, Burger King, TK Maxx.
I was going to say early learning.
Early learning, yeah.
They even have that anymore.
London Boroughs, Mike. Thank you, Mark Berry. Hey?
Early learning, is that gone?
Early learning. Do you know what? The other day, someone said, people who live in the UK will understand this. People that don't live in the UK probably won't get this, but it's quite amusing anyway. I work in a car shop on Sunday, and somebody came in and they weren't particularly good with English, let's say. So make of that whatever you will. So they come over to the counter and said, do you hire out car baby seats? And I'm like, oh no, we haven't sold baby seats and car seats for ages now. It's more of a specialist thing. Mate, have you tried somewhere like Mothercare? And as soon as I said it, this gentleman who didn't speak very good English, and also my colleague, they both looked at each other and then looked at me. I'm like, what? They're like, Mothercare hasn't been around for years. I'm like, I don't know. I don't go out. I have no idea. They're like, Jesus, Mike, you got to get out more. Mothercare hasn't been around for like a decade at least. How the hell am I supposed to know that?
It's not that
I don't have a baby.
It was there.
I don't go out.
It was there when we used to pick Georgia up next door to Sports Direct. It didn't shut down a decade ago.
It's got to be like 5 years or something, I suppose, isn't it? But still, it does show my my thing. So apparently Mothercare is not a thing anymore. I don't know if they got some online thing, but if anyone knows where you can actually hire or rent car baby seats, let me know in the comments. And I'll pass it on.
Toys R Us.
Toys R Us, yeah.
And that closed down as well.
I think that's coming back.
What was his name? The giraffe?
Jeremy, wasn't it? Was it Jeremy the giraffe?
Don't sound right.
Charles Ballard says, I go back and forth between Worcestershire and Worcestershire. When I'm feeling fancy, I'll say Worcestershire.
Just call it Worcester.
Let's call it Worcester, it's easier.
Whoops.
Fallout London being delayed because of Fallout 4 being released on PS5. I wonder if it'll be held back even more so, just in case. Because you know what it's like with TV shows. We used to work on Casualty, and every now and then there'll be an episode which was going out, which actually reflected something which had just happened in the news. So they're like, too soon? Maybe Fallout London might be one of those cases where it might get delayed because London being kind of rubble. That'd be pretty poor. Shiny Helmet says, I never knew that mother care wasn't a thing now. So I'm in the same boat. I had no idea.
Shop at Maplin's.
Yeah, Maplin's, yeah. I miss Maplin's. Mark Berry says, I miss napkins. You should just try eating less soft food. Go for solid. Maybe Woolworths have them. Yeah. Dutch Jan says, my motorcycle identifies itself as a bicycle, so I'll win the Tour de France this year. Good for you. Mothercare is part of Boots. It still exists, but only in name. Thank you. So I wasn't completely being stupid.
Mothercare is in the UK. It looks like it's online on via Boots. So you can't go there.
Right. William Bodie says, Dutch Jan, change your name to Doping Jan then. Bless. David Thompson says, remember the Tandy's free battery of the month club? I absolutely miss Tandy. For us, where I live now, there was a Tandy store literally within... I could probably see it out of one of the roof vents. You know, those things, windows. Velux windows. If I opened the Velux window, I could almost see Tandy from where we live.
It's just across the road from where you work.
Just across the road from where I work. Yeah, bloody great stuff. Loved it. Loved Tandy. And their Battery of the Month club. We used to always get those things come around in the late 80s where you'd get the Tandy catalogue, and if you went to the store, there was quite often like a cut-off coupon. So if you went into the store, you could claim like a free thing. And I remember there was a free torch, which was probably a very early version of the Maglite, like the 5D cell Maglite. And that torch was like unbelievable. It was cheap as all hell, but it had an absolute ton of batteries in it and was like a proper nightstick type thing. Very good. Loved that one.
Where's my little Tandy thing?
What's that?
My little computer thing I had that you were going to mend.
I'm not sure where I put that. It's back somewhere.
Hello, Dave. Come and say hello.
David Thompson says Tandy is back in the USA, I think. I think the Tandy brand, or Radio Shack, kind of did survive, possibly, a little bit.
Come say hello.
Viali100 says, who remembers Rumbelows? I think my first computer came from Rumbelows, my Spectrum 48K Plus. I'm pretty sure that was Rumbelows.
Babe.
Dave! What's going on? Come on. Come over. I'll take that as negative.
He wants to sit on your boolies.
He's gone straight for the boolies. That cat knows comfort. David Aiken. Mike, what is your next planned personal upgrade to your daily driver? Now that is actually a very good question. I honestly don't know what I would do to my daily rig. The only thing I can think of which I think potentially might be an upgrade would be just to wipe it and start again. I haven't done a fresh install on my daily driver for, I don't know, it's got to be well over a year, maybe 2. I honestly can't think of the last time I did an installation on it. I think at one point I did do a recovery from the NAS, so basically the previous day's backup, so I don't really class that as a fresh install because that's just the same image. So, I don't know. Hayden Trent says, did you ever get that 3080 super duper per household thing sorted? No. I ended up buying an MSI RTX 4070 Super, which was reduced on eBay from eBuyer. And I paid just over £500 for it, for a 4070 Super, which the MSI version, the Gaming X Slim, is normally about £100 more. So I think I've done pretty well. I kind of still regretting not getting a 4080, but as the time has gone on and we're now getting towards the time of Computex in, what's that, 2 months time, 3 months time, I would be very surprised if Nvidia didn't do a launch before then, or at least an announcement before then, of the 5080 and the 5090. I think those are very close from speculation and general kind of buzzing around in the background. So I think buying anything higher than a like 4070 Super at this particular time, unless it's exceptionally good value, is potentially a slightly risky thing, being that the 5080 is supposedly going to be trading blows with the 4090. So if the 5080 is about £1,000, the same price as the 4080, it's basically going to be a 4090, which is basically £1,600. So that looks quite promising, but it's still a ridiculous amount of money, which probably most people probably can't consider and won't consider. And I feel quite happy to have the 4070 Super. It does what I need it to do. The video editing is okay. I think actually some of the problems I've got are actually with the 13th gen Intel, with that I/O die. The more I look into it and the more I look at the things that are going on and happening, and the little judders and micro stutters, I think they're more to do with the actual Intel processor, which is a bit of a bummer. And it wasn't as prevalent with the 13500. So, I don't know. Shady said, would you recommend side grading to Windows 11? I like how you've put that. You've already kind of realised where you are. Yeah, Windows 11 is Windows 10. It just looks slightly different. Arguably, I don't know. I think Windows 11 looks and feels nicer. I think Windows 10 was still trying to be a little bit of Windows 7, but not quite hitting it on the head properly. I think Windows 11 is the better operating system, personally. Zero Defect says, turn it back to stock Intel settings and see how you get on. I have been tempted to do that, actually. Shady says they might announce the 4080 Super Duper. I just saw someone say something there. What was that? Dave says, Mike got a new Logitech G303 Shroud Edition gaming mouse coming soon as on RMA. Yours to review. Could be the ultimate lefty mouse. Oh, that's interesting. Thank you very much. I haven't used a Logitech mouse in well. I don't really class this as a Logitech mouse. This is the M280 Silent Touch, but it's more of a toy than it is like a proper gaming mouse or a productivity mouse. You can use this for working, but it's not great. Captain Mike says there's a 4080 Asus Tough going for £700 near me. Tempted, Mike? That's quite good. 700 quid. I have noticed there is a massive discrepancy between prices between, I think it's probably if you get to, I don't know, Gloucester. Anything south of Gloucester, not too bad price-wise. Not unreasonable, but not great. As soon as you go above Gloucester and go up through towards the north, GPU prices are bloody excellent. They're absolutely great. I looked at some, it's like there was, what did I see recently? I saw something and I was like, that's got to be a misprint. And then I noticed there's a couple more. And this is just on Facebook Marketplace. There's tons of them. Loads of decent price graphics cards further up north. But I don't live up north, so not much use. Wayne Taylor says you should start playing with X server gear. Just picked up 200 times 4 GB SAS hard disk drives for $1,000. Blimey.
Do you need a drink?
Davey, yes please. Mookie MC says cats don't stay as kittens for long enough. No, they don't actually. You're right. John Dukes Tobbit. Hi Mike, just got a Ryzen 7 7700X set up and it gets very warm. Is the best cooler going to be RTX Freezer 3 IO to try and handle the inferno? There's various things you can do. Like that PC behind me now is a 7700X. And I've got the ASUS performance enhancement turned off. I've got it, the core optimizer set to a -20, so that brings it down a little bit. And what else have I done? I think that's it. So those are things which you can do which will bring it down. And that thing, what temperature are we at the moment? The liquid's at 27.6, CPU's at 45 degrees. And that is, it says it's using 10% CPU, which it might be for encoding. But yeah, the CPU overhead's a little bit higher on there at the moment, but it's not too bad. It does get quite warm now and then. If I put it onto like a Cinebench load, it'll hit probably 85, 86. That is with a 360 Thermaltake AIO on there. So yeah, they do get quite toasty. They are designed to hit 95C, but I don't feel that that's healthy. And also, it's really a pain in the ass to set up your fan profiles so that they can cope with those spikes in temperature and you don't get that constant of the fans like whirring up and down, which is really annoying. Again, another thing why I think the current generation is awful. And it all started around about the time the 5800X came out, because that was the first CPU which used a 8 cores on a single CCX, so it just generated a lot of heat, and that was the kind of turning point. Before then, most CPUs were pretty easy to cool. Like the 3900X was like easy to cool. Like if it hit 70s, you were like, okay, maybe I'll turn the cooler up a little bit. Then the 5800X came out and it was like hitting 75, 80. And then we had AM5 come out where they're hitting 95, what they're aimed to go to. And Intel was doing the same thing. It's like, oh God, it's just getting ridiculous. Rick H says, Arctic A380, my last new graphics card. I never used to buy new graphics cards. I've generally always traditionally bought used graphics cards. It's like buying a used car. They are much better value, but you never know what's happened to them previously. Thank you.
What's wrong, Dave?
Sky says, Computex will be a paper RTX 5080, 5090. They're going to be expensive. I think you're right. John Sullivan says, I'm waiting on Battle Mage. I would like Battle Mage to be good. I hope that it can be. Skystalker says, do you ever get the error that some people are talking about, Mike? Out of video memory when compiling shaders? No, I've not had that at all. That's one of the Intel problems that I've not had yet. I don't think I have. I'm trying to think now, because I may have had weird crashes, but I may have not have associated it with that and just thought, oh, I need to update the drivers or something. So I've not really Yeah, I've not really played that many games to know about that. Wayne says, I think Intel have pushed their CPUs to the limits of the box, no leeway left. I completely agree. I think you're absolutely right. Which is sad, really. Nvidia is just a rip-off, says Viali. The thing is, all companies are. They are ultimately there to extract as much money as they can from your pocket without offending the majority of people. And that is kind of what they want to do. Andrew says, cat, cat, cat. How far behind is that? Oh, have I not scrolled down far enough? I haven't, have I? Dave Aiken says, the 7800X on eco mode becomes very easy to cool. 7700, no problem for a dual tower cooler. Yeah, I think that's what I was saying earlier. The 7500F, the 7600, and the 7700 non-X are all great CPUs and very easy to use. Pretty much any motherboard is going to be absolutely fine with the VRMs on them because they're not drawing a ridiculous amount of heat or power, and they're very easy to keep cool.
Did you do, Mohammed, what recommend GPU with Ryzen 3 3200G?
I haven't even seen that.
That's quite high up now. I think I'm catching up now.
Where is it? Mohammed.
Yeah.
I'm looking. Where are you, Mohammed? Christ, how far up is that?
It probably is quite far because I've been making drinks. That kettle's just been using it, being brilliant. Right,
Was it before or after the Tandy batteries? There's someone's name there which I don't know. I cannot pronounce that. It still says hi Rachel. There we go. Gigabyte or MSI for B650.
Yeah, it's under that.
That's a bloody minefield, that is.
It's not that far, actually.
I think for that question, there's too many variables. They're both going to have their pros and cons for various different reasons. Arguably, price to performance, the Gigabyte probably will have the very slight upper hand. Gigabyte tend to go a little bit better with the VRMs. In terms of feature, like Gigabyte software, I still hate with a passion. It's horrendous. It's like it's come out of the 1980s or something. Awful stuff.
The 80s were good.
The 80s were good, but not for computers.
That's probably where they were good.
Well, I've already put my money where my mouth is, so I've got an MSI B650 Edge Wi-Fi. I've got the B650 Gaming Plus Wi-Fi there. I've had the Tomahawk Wi-Fi. I've had the Gaming Plus Wi-Fi. What other one did I have? There was another one as well. I can't think what it was. I've had a few of them. The B650 platform in general is pretty awful, and it's still very immature in its production cycle. So I don't know. I would go for the MSI boards myself personally, and they haven't asked me or paid me to say that. They barely speak to me. Although saying that, I did ask them about the RTX 4070 Super again. That they were well, it would be unfair to me to say they said I could have it, but they did say they would ask MSI HQ if at the end of the rotation cycle, if they could leave it with me. So there was lots of ifs and buts there. Multi-layered ifs and buts, which are normally that kind of dangling the carrot in front of you thing. It's like, well, if you do these reviews and they're good reviews and you get lots of views, then we might give you something. It's like, I don't really care. Like, I'm way past you in terms of the dangling the carrot. Like, if I want to do a review, I'll do a review. If I don't want to do a review, I won't do a review. It doesn't matter what you dangle in front of me. I don't care. So they said that, and it's like, yeah, all right, whatever. So I just wrote it off. But I asked them again, and they said, unfortunately, due to the RTX 4070 Super Gaming Slim Edition's poor rotation, they weren't able to. I was like, what the hell is a poor rotation when it's at home? What does that even mean? Poor rotation. So does that mean that for all the people that actually had that graphics card and did the reviews, all of the views sucked, so they didn't get enough views, so they don't want to let us have a graphics card. I don't even know how that works. I don't know. I really don't know. It's a very strange world, the whole kind of getting sent review samples. And I have been having somewhat of a internal conflict very recently, where I'm getting to the point where I'm actually considering rejecting everything. So whenever anyone asks me if I want to review a product, I'm very tempted just to say no to everything and only go out and actually buy things that I want to review. But that makes it really boring because I'm a tight bastard and I won't buy anything. Or I'm an hour about it for ages and it'll never happen. So there'll be no videos to watch. So it's kind of like
Petals, where I've talked you into one.
It's going to be... It makes it hard because I don't want to accept things for review at all. But I do want to review items. So it puts me in a really awkward position. Like, I'll say what I say because I just don't care. I don't intentionally go out of my way to offend people, but if I think something, I'm going to say something. I'm not really going to skirt around it. I've actually got a review coming up very soon, which the thumbnail, you'll notice it in the thumbnail, because it says, was I overly harsh on this video? So it's going to be one of those videos where some people are going to disagree with me massively. I know they are. Some people will take it as being constructive. I don't know. I don't know how it's going to turn out. It might be that I don't work with that company ever again. I hope not. Especially being...
You hope you don't work for them.
I hope it doesn't sour our relationship to a point where they don't want to send me stuff. Because I've just been honest. And I said to Kath before I started the video, should I do some sort of preface to this video to explain my position and why the review is as it is? And also to explain to the company, say, look, I like you guys, but these are my findings. This is my thoughts. You either have to take that on the chin or you don't. It's up to you. So anyway, that is going to be that's going to be an interesting one. I was very tempted not to do it and phone them up and say, look, I don't think you're going to like this review. Do you want me to return the product? And we'll just forget it. But I don't think that's fair to you guys out there as well, because it's something which you might be interested in, and I think you should know. So, anyway. You'll find out soon enough what it is. You have to watch the video. I think it's going to be a popular video. I think it's going to get a lot of views purely because of the thumbnail and the kind of the potential backlash that it's going to get. But anyway, you'll find out. I still can't find that thing about the 3400G.
Dave Aiken answered it.
Thank you, Dave.
It's not that far from the bottom, really. Well, it is now,
Alright.
because you've whittled on for ages again.
Sorry, I was chatting for too long. Zero Defects says, I would personally not take anything if I wasn't allowed to keep it. It's a lot of work making a video. It is, to be honest with you, it is. It's, making a video is probably, it's probably about 80% preparation.
Coming up with candy?
10% of the filming, and then 10% of it after is kind of the aftermath and looking after the video, because you might think that, well, for some people it probably is the same. Just they make a video, it goes out, it airs, they answer a couple of questions, and that's it, job done. But because we answer all the questions, like even a video which was done 7 years ago, if someone asks a question on it, I'll answer it. So the video isn't just an investment in my time then when I made it, it's also an investment in the future time. And for how much longer we'll be able to carry on answering those older videos, I don't know. Hopefully we'll keep on doing it. Kath does a lot of it behind the scenes as well, answers some of the questions she can, or if we've got like a canned response that we can reply to, then sometimes they go out.
but if you ask a question on a question, if
Yeah.
you reply to a comment,
Yeah, if
they
you
get missed a lot more than what.
never reply to a comment if you can help it. Always ask a new question because then it will appear on our fresh list,
And that will definitely get answered.
and you'll get answered then. Michael Craig says, "Hey Mike, here's a weird question for the old uns. What do you feel is the most iconic piece of tech from the 90s? For me, it was those multi-CD hi-fi systems that everyone had. That or Tamagotchis."
Oh, you won me a Tamagotchi.
I did actually win a Tamagotchi on the radio. The most iconic piece of tech from the 90s. The 90s spread was like massive, so there's a lot of iconic things. I think some of the more iconic ones for me, and I'm probably going to miss out a whole load.
Polaroid camera.
That was before then.
That was it.
Yeah, I think the dial-up modem, arguably more 80s, I suppose, for BBS users, but for mainstream in the 90s, I think that dial-up tone, that is a very iconic piece of hardware. The 3DFX Voodoo card, I think that is a standout piece of equipment from the 90s. What else was there hardware-wise in the 90s? I suppose probably one of the things which changed our environment was probably the inkjet printer. It sounds like a stupid thing, but pretty much everyone had one at home at some point. So yeah, an old Hewlett-Packard DeskJet 640 or something. That would be quite iconic with the bread bin type flap on the front. The big Marvelinsky. YouTube started throttling me because I has ad block. Oh dear. Mark Berry says, "Good that you stick to your guns, Mike. A lot of people just sell out." The thing is, like selling out, I'll be honest, I've never had the opportunity. So I don't know how you'd go about selling out. I'm assuming it involves like envelopes and receipts and all kinds of weird stuff. Maybe it just, I don't know, freebies, whatever it is, all expensive trips. I have no idea. So yeah, I don't know. I stick to my guns. I do get to the point where I'm doing some videos and I'm just thinking to myself, why am I doing this? I have no interest in doing this. But I do, that's the trouble. When you get to a certain size of channel, I think you have to start considering that just because something may not be of interest to you, it may be of interest to your viewers. So there is that kind of, you have to have a little bit of a tightrope of things that you really like and things that you do because you do it for the channel. But recently it's becoming more and more doing things for the channel than things that I actually really like. So I think I need to try and readdress that balance a little bit more. We'll see what happens. I think that's part of the reason why I wanted to go back to maybe not taking any review samples and just going back to doing the good old-fashioned cheap-ass stuff which I find on the internet, which is cool. But then again, I know that there's some people that watch the channel because of some of the other things that we get sent in, so yeah, it's a no-win situation really. I think I enjoyed it when the channel was smaller. It was more fun. Where are we? Viali says, "I've been using Armory Crate for a long time. I think it's very good." I think Armory Crate isn't too bad. It depends on the motherboard. If you're using it on a really modern motherboard where all of the features are integrated in Armory Crate, it's actually alright. But for a lot of times, like things like the AI fan control or the fan control software won't work inside of Armory Crate. You have to install the external one, which is the AI suite. It's like, well, you got two sets of apps that are doing the same thing.
Should we give away some?
Yeah, give away some memberships, Kath.
There we go.
Thanos says, "Mike, it's not a bad thing that you have character and you do whatever you think is better for your channel." I try to. Maybe sometimes we miss the mark a little bit, but in general, I think we keep things pretty much down a straight line. Brickage says, I'll just keep sending you cheap crap from Amazon UK, Mike. Thanks for it. I need to fast forward. Is that? Oh, they have gone out. So there we go. We have gifted some memberships to some lucky people. So Wayne Taylor has been gifted a membership. Jay Gordon.
We don't choose this.
Matthew Day. Tech Soul.
Matthew Day won't give. Oh yeah, he was.
Yeah. And that Ninja Duck. That Ninja Duck. So there you go. You got some YouTube memberships there. So you get a month's worth of early access, and also no, it's Matthew Day's. 1, 2, 3. Oh yeah, that did 6.
Oh, that's all right then. It says 5 at the top. That's why I wondered if Matthew Days was in the middle of it. But
Oh no, it's 5 now. Yeah, it's changed again. I'm sure it said 5. It's 6 just now. I counted 6. It's changed to so Wayne Taylor, Jay Gordon, Matthew Day, Tech Soul, and that Ninja Duck. I ain't that duck.
Maybe we can't count.
Yeah, it's been like that. I think I've been burning the candle at both ends, and it's catching up with me.
No, you've been watching that bloody thing for too long.
I have. Michael Craig says, I like it that you review some lesser known brands. You really miss out on some hidden gems if you stick to the better known brands. So that is,
The underdog thing again.
That's the underdog thing coming out of me again. I do love to see an up and coming product. So you got all those brands. You got like Techwear, Sahara Gaming, GameMax, Colink, I suppose to some extent. There's quite a few of the smaller brands, and even some of the really, really small brands, which have like just got a little store on Amazon or something. I really like those type of brands. I think they're very cool, and they definitely have a place. Ions is one of those companies which started out like really small.
Somebody earlier asked you to
And they've been great.
Ions KZX1.
I did that.
Oh, you've done that? I've said noted.
KZX1. I think I've done that.
Could you whittle on? I can't get a
Sorry.
word in.
Anyway, yeah, so there you go. Andrew says, Be Quiet has released some new fans and PSUs since your last review of their products. Do you plan to review Be Quiet again soon? Be Quiet has been one of the brands which there was a rep that we were in contact with, and they sent us the I can't remember what cooler it was now. It was a 240mm AIO cooler, and we had the case from them as well, and never heard anything back. So maybe we weren't getting the numbers that they wanted or something. I don't know, but they've not been in contact with us at all for years. That's why you don't see anything on the channel, because
Then a lot of companies change their reps. Don't
they do change their
And
reps.
then
So yeah,
you've got no contact then.
I would quite like to see some Be Quiet stuff. Be Quiet. I'm probably going to alienate a lot of people here, but I think Be Quiet, I almost put them into the same category as I do with Noctua and EK, as being like a premium rate brand, which have a little bit of snobbiness to them, which I don't know, I don't think they necessarily have, but I think Be Quiet, because when Be Quiet started out, they were a relatively inexpensive brand, but they gradually increased prices, and they've got dearer and dearer due to their name. But the last time I had Be Quiet stuff, the fans were noisy as all hell, and it just, I don't know, I was expecting more, which is a shame. Irie Wolfman says overpriced. Andy Archer says, which company is next for the chop mic? I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot which are on the kind of the teetering point at the moment, and I don't know. If I was thinking, there isn't a single brand which stands out at the moment as being like in trouble. Yeah, it's a tough one. I think probably one of the next, if I was a gambling person, I think the next kind of big company to hit the bricks is probably going to be one of the system integrators, I think. I think most of the others, like the manufacturers, you kind of, your ASRoCs, your MSIs, all that kind of stuff, I think they're a little bit too big to get into any serious problems now. So I think it's going to be more of the kind of the boutique system integrators. Chill Blast, possibly. I don't know. There's a lot of kind of boutique style PC manufacturers, and with the push towards AM5 and DDR5 systems getting dearer, people losing interest a little bit as well, I think those will be the ones that feel the squeeze first of all, because the manufacturers will still be selling to those system integrators in advance. So that part of the chain is still going to work. It's going to be that last link of the chain, so between the system integrator and the end user. That is where the sticking point generally is. So, I don't know.
Jason Wood asks, would you review the new ZX Spectrum thing?
Yeah, to be honest, there's been quite a few things like the new, there was a new Atari 2600 Plus that came out, and I thought that looks very cool. I had very fond memories of the 2600, so I would quite like to review one of those. The ZX Spectrum was one of the main personal computers that I grew up with.
Did you play Pitfall?
So I probably would play many games on that. R-Type for sure.
Oh,
Renegade probably.
On your camera bag.
Come on, Dave, go and sleep. Go on then. Come on. Come on.
Put it up on the table for me.
There you go. Yeah. Dave likes to sleep on my camera bag. Don't you, mate? Don't eat the cable, because that's the Stream Deck.
Have you patted him on the head?
Can you see him? So there's just
his ears.
Oh, you just might see him. Yeah, he's still there. Good boy. You alright? No night then. Bless him.
Mohammed asked, is monitor do bottleneck with GPU?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, your monitor, well, yes and no. If you've got a monitor which is only sort of 60 Hz or 75 Hz and you have your game set to VSync on, your GPU is going to be bottlenecked to only being to do 60 or 75 frames per second. So in some respects, yes, your monitor can bottleneck your GPU. Also, as well, if you have VSync turned off, if you've got a pretty slow monitor that doesn't do particularly good refresh rates, if you put too many frames per second into it, it can actually look worse, because the monitor has to kind of decide which frames that it doesn't display, because it can only do 60 per cycle, and your graphics card's putting out like 200 or something, so it's like, well, which frames do I drop? So if there's quite a slow processor actually in the monitor itself, it can look like a horrible smeary mess. It's all about balance. Trying to get everything so that the pipeline is all nice and equalised.
Why is there a Greek flag in your stream? Where?
That is Thanos' question, because he is Greek.
No, it's not. It's Sam Scott.
The question that's on the screen at the moment.
Ah. Okay, I got you.
I am clearing it now.
I'm looking in the background, thinking I don't even know what the Greek flag looks like.
Dave Aiken says, I cannot believe Cooler Master is still going, to be honest. A crap brand, in my opinion. Yeah. Cooler Master is huge. And I mean ridiculously huge outside of Europe and the UK. America, possibly not quite so much. Southern America, Asia, ridiculous. They are nuts for it over there. They seem to have really kind of captured that market pretty well. They've done a good job of that. I think their design language and their pricing and their marketing and their aim, really, I don't think they're particularly bothered about our region, the UK in particular. You don't see hardly any. I can't remember the last time I saw a new Cooler Master product, to be honest with you. It's very, very rare. Whereas in reality, they're releasing stuff like almost daily. Loads and loads of new stuff coming out from Cooler Master. But yeah, we just don't see it here in the UK. And I guess that may be the same in Europe as well. Let us know from our European viewers. Do you see much Cooler Master stuff in Australia as well? I know we've got some viewers in Australia and North America. Let us know. What's your thoughts on Cooler Master? I agree with Dave. I've never been a fan of Cooler Master stuff. The original 212 Evo, I think, was a really good cooler. And it came out at a particular time where it just made a lot of sense and it was at a really good price. But Cooler Master have basically been annihilated by the likes of Thermalright, for sure. Thermalright have done some fantastic stuff.
And Johnsbow.
Really have. Johnsbow we don't tend to see much of in the UK, but they do have some good options.
And Arctic.
Arctic have done some good stuff. I think Arctic have been a very much, they've gone down the kind of be quiet EK route, where they started off as being very customer focused and kind of friendly pricing, almost kind of like class lead in stuff. Then they went through a kind of an era where they seemed to just jack their prices up, and I think everyone in the market did at the same time. But Arctic just kind of went off on a little bit of a weird tangent. Recently they've come back, and they've come back strong with those price decreases, but it appears that pretty much everywhere now those prices have ended, and they've almost doubled in price for some of the items. So the Freezer 36, which I thoroughly enjoyed using and recommend wholeheartedly at the kind of 20 odd pounds price that it was, is now gone up to about £45, which that price, it does make no sense whatsoever. So actually maybe Arctic might be in the firing line. That would be one which I think would be quite a shock to a lot of people, but if they continue doing what they're doing price wise, they've almost priced themselves out of their market anyway. The market they actually dominated for a long time. But I think personally Arctic might be one of the next companies we see fail, if they continue the path they're going with these insane prices for what is a good product, but not excellent. Certainly not worth the money they're trying to charge. And there's probably another company who will never work with the game. I'm just being honest. I'm just saying as it is. That's my own personal feelings. You can disagree, you can agree, it doesn't matter. That's my opinion. Hayden Trent says, what will happen to all those thousands of i7 second and third and fourth generation gaming PCs once Windows 10 stops being supported? To be honest with you, I think they'll probably just still be used. It's not like the day rolls over and PC doesn't work. It's just not getting support anymore. Happened with Windows 7, and people carried on using it. So I don't think it's going to change anything. It'll get to the point where they'll be phased out more and more, but realistically, if you're someone who's using a second or third or fourth gen Intel processor now on a PC with Windows 10, you're probably not a enthusiast as such, because that's quite old stuff now. That's more almost getting towards the era of retro gaming. So I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal for those older systems. I think where it gets to be a bit of a bigger deal is like the 6000 series, 7000 series, 8000 series, 9000 series Intel.
What is it, Flamey?
But they should be okay.
G food. Ivory Wolfman says, Hyper 212 no good anymore then? It is okay, but when you can pick up things like the Thermalright Assassin SE for like 17 quid against Hyper 212, which is about 25-30 quid,
yeah, there's no competition, is there really? Yeah, Dave Aiken says the same. iWolfman and Thermalright do better air coolers for half the price. Interesting fact, actually, Thermalright is a kind of splinter company from Thermaltake. Some of the people that worked for Thermaltake split off and started Thermalright. Not sure if there's any like rivalry between them now, but yeah, Thermalright was basically born out of Thermaltake. William Bodie says, Mike is the Aristotle of the tech world. I don't know what Aristotle is. I'm assuming that's a positive thing. Sans?
Yeah.
Ira Wolfman, love Thermalright, glad to see them make it back. Yeah, I think Thermalright have been doing many, many fine things. David Aiken says, Antech, the next big old company to fail. Well, Antech, I think, have already changed ownership anyway. I think they've done something, because they went from being like almost manufacturing all their own stuff to basically buying in stuff from ODMs. But having said that, some of their new stuff in the last couple of weeks, flipping amazing. Is it a C8 or C3 or C5? Some really good stuff. I'm almost scared to ask Antech for a review sample, because if it isn't as good as it looks and it seems, I'm going to be really disappointed. But some of their new stuff looks to be coming out at the right price, the right designs, and just ticking all those boxes that you'd expect from an Antech case. So I'm kind of excited for that. So I don't think Antech will be on the chopping block. I would hope not. But you never know. Depends how much money they put into their new designs they're bringing out at the moment. Whether or not that has stretched them too much financially. Especially when we're heading into the spring-summer season, which is traditionally always slow. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I think Antech, their biggest problem is distribution. Getting their cases into enough places, because I remember when they did some previously, and trying to get them on Amazon or anything was really hard work. And realistically, if you can't get a case on Amazon, it's kind of dead, isn't it? Because Amazon is the biggest shopping place, isn't it? Where do we get to? Michael Craig says, legacy systems for businesses applications that run on Windows 7 and 10. Yeah, they'll still be going. They might disconnect from the internet. Probably not. They could switch to Linux if Windows is no longer worked. The thing is, at least with Windows, there's a strong chance that even if you're in a very small business with, I don't know, 5 people, there's going to be at least one person, likely, who knows about computers or how they work. So you kind of got your built-in support there. Whereas Linux is such a different beast altogether that people are just not used to. I know it looks and feels very similar, but it doesn't work the same way. If someone said to me, Mike, can you install this on a Linux system? I would probably have to look it up. And I'm someone who is involved in tech like all the time, from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed. And I know very little about Linux because I've had very little exposure to it. And if I've had little exposure to it, you would pretty much assume that probably 95% of the population are going to be in a very similar boat. So that is the limiting factor of Linux. If you've used it and you've experienced it, then you have the benefit of that. So
why do so many people want to move to it? You've got put that to yourself, haven't you?
The thing is, so many people want to move to it, but don't. And I think it's very much like the political system in pretty much every country. Everybody gets to the point where it's like, well, who do I vote for? There's nobody I actually want to vote for. And that's the same with Windows and Linux. Like, Windows is the devil you know, whereas Linux is the devil you don't. And they're both going to be doing things at some point that you don't like. It's just that there's such a tiny installation base on Linux that the weaknesses and the vulnerabilities and that haven't been utilized because people are like, oh, it's such a tiny attack vector. What is the point? There's no point. Like, we try and hack 1 million Windows PCs, guaranteed we're going to get some return on investment. If we try and hack 1 million Linux PCs, what are we going to get? Nerds with no money anyway. I'm joking. I joke. But you know what I mean. It's the target audience there. Windows is the most dominating platform by a massive margin. And people don't know how to use Linux. So it's all right saying, yeah, it's free and it's open source and you can do this and you can do that and whatever. But if people aren't going to use it, it's pointless. I think they're actually, on a political note, I would liken Linux to Greenpeace. Like, arguably they are the people that make sense the most, if you think about it, but no one votes for them. And that is kind of with Linux. Linux makes the most sense if you look at it on paper, but no one wants to use it. There's a very good analogy between the two. Sans 1210. Hi mate, anything about changing mouse switches? I got a double-clicking G Pro Superlight. If you're going to change mouse switches, get the right kit. Make sure you've got decent soldering equipment. If you haven't, give it to someone to do. Take it to a shop. If you value the item, get someone to do it. I've done 2 lots of mice changing switches, and I killed one of the mice, and the other one worked. And I know when you watch these like, this is another thing. People say, there's many things where people say, oh, do this, it's very easy. It's like, well, it's easy if you know how to do it. Or you can do it, or you have the ability. Soldering, for me, is really, really hard. I know the theory, I know the concept, but practically, I suck at it. Like, majorly. I am terrible at soldering. Whether it's because I don't have the patience, or I don't have the experience, or the tools, or whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but I suck at it. So, if you are good at soldering, and you know you're good at soldering, then I would certainly attempt doing switch changes. For me, it hasn't been quite that pleasant an experience, and I have tried multiple times, and every time it's just been frustrating. So you probably won't see any mouse switch videos coming from me, at least not for the foreseeable, or until I have the time to be able to sit down and actually learn how to solder and do it properly, and all the kind of intricacies and thermal masses and all that kind of stuff.
Your dad is good at that sort of stuff.
Yeah, apparently my dad is good at that stuff, and my granddad was as well. I can't do it. Ivory Wolfman says thermal take were wrong. Yeah, that's because the others were thermal right. Is that what you're trying to say? Yeah. There's lots of jokes to be had with that.
Sans has heard that.
Zero Defects says pretty much all servers run Linux. Yeah, they do. That's been the case for many, many years. But again, there's a reason for it, because the people that are actually using the servers or utilizing servers, they know how to use them and how to run them. Most people don't. And also servers, I think Linux is a more robust operating system in general. but it isn't overly user-friendly. And that is where you have to find that balance between something which is resilient, but also useful. I think Windows has obviously proven that it can do that, otherwise everyone would be using Linux.
But then Windows is going too many steps too far for people to want to consider leaving.
Windows are going too many steps, but they won't go, because you've got like the 3 steps. You've got, on the one side, you've got your closed wall altogether, like Apple. So you've got iOS, Macintosh. Then you've got your kind of intermediary, which is the safety zone, which is Windows. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you've got your Linux distributions. So you've got this section here where you can basically do whatever you want, and it's kind of like a complete free-for-all. Then you've got Windows, which has a slightly locked down ecosystem, but in general is open, so you can install what you want onto it, or configure it pretty much how you want if you have the knowledge. Then you've got Apple, where it's kind of App Store or bust kind of thing. And I think most people, again, it's the extremes. You do extreme there, or kind of somewhere in this fuzzy middle ground where Windows inhabits. Dutch Jan says, when someone can do something really well, it always seems easy. Yeah, same with everything. It's soldering, plumbing, electricals, mechanics, musicians. People generally have a talent for something, and quite often if they've got a talent for one thing, they struggle in some other areas. But yeah, I do struggle genuinely with soldering. I don't understand it. In theory, like, I know I like electronics, I like how it all works, but yeah, just something about it just something doesn't click with me. It will do eventually one day, I guess, but it might be a bit late by then. Charles says, get a mouse with all optical switches and you'll never need to replace switches. I swear by my Ballistic V2 and my Ballistic V3.
Poppy.
Ira Wolfman says, if the ocean froze, it would take 6 months to walk to the nearest micro sensor. Jason Woods says, good night all, have a great weekend. And speaking of which, actually, yeah, we should be wrapping things up. So if there's any last minute questions, get them in now, because it's just gone past 11 o'clock. And surprisingly, the stream, I think, has actually been rock solid stable, hasn't it? Has there been any buffering at all? I don't think I noticed any. I didn't see anybody complaining about buffering either. No one's saying anything. Nero says, oh, I'm in too late. Oh, sorry. Michael Craig says, crystal clear. Zero Defect says, all good stream-wise here. No buffering here. Excellent stuff. So, I've actually changed it. So, the OBS settings, I've changed it. Remind me of this. I'm on the NVIDIA NVENC, and I'm using the H.265 encoder rather than the H.264. So H.265 is a more compressed version, but it takes a little bit more power to run it. I think that's why the CPU's been running a little bit more. We're about 2 or 3% CPU, which normally is at like 0. So anyway, seems to have worked out. Charles Ballard says, I'm so proud of myself. Not once in this stream did I mention Wizard with Genie Penis Wand. You just did. So did I. Nick Barnes says, question, looking to replace damaged 32-inch TV in bedroom. Can you use a Chromecast on a monitor? Thinking 27-inch 1440p. If the monitor has a HDMI, then yeah. I don't see why not. Yeah, 27-inch 1440p. I'm not sure if you'll get it to run at 1440p though. I've not used a Chromecast in many, many years. So I don't know. Or one of the Amazon sticks. Possibly. I think it's probably going to default to 1080p. Glimpse of Light says I use Windows 7 and love it. Windows 7 was great for its time. Michael B says your bald head was a little shiny. Jokes. It's because that light up there, our studio light is really harsh. It needs a proper softbox on it, really. I've been out in the sun today, so might get a bit of a tan on it. Sky says monitor will require speakers. Yes, good point. Michael B says, be well all, I have things to do, i.e. laundry. I'll get up early in the morning for work, which is a shame. Oh, there's Maisie in the window. Maisie's been out on the tiles. Well, it's on the...
St. John's Wort she's been on. Bless
She's
her.
been out all day. Hey, Maves. Right, thank you all for joining us tonight. Hopefully you've enjoyed the stream. If you have, smash the like button. If you want to see more content of this on a daily basis, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button and the chime notification. And that way, you might be notified of future video releases. Never really sure if it's going to happen with YouTube, but there you go. Have a great rest of the weekend. Hopefully you have a good one. And looks like the summer is finally getting here. So try and get outside, get some fresh air, get some sunshine and enjoy yourselves. And if you can't get outside and enjoy yourselves, then feel free to join us on our Discord, which I will put a link in the description if you haven't used it already. And also, if you're thinking of building a PC and you are stuck for a license key, you can check out premiumcdkeys.com/Mike's Unboxing. The cheapest internet CD keys that are genuine and legitimate and not going to get you into trouble and actually work are available for about £3, I think, at the moment. Some ridiculous price, but anyway, very cheap. And also, if you want to use Windows 11 and you don't want to use a Microsoft account, the video that went out on Friday will be very helpful to you, because the previous versions of that video with the no@thanks.com and no thanks password, that no longer works. And also the previous version of the out-of-box experience and bypass NRO, that no longer works as it used to either. So there's another step you've got to do. Microsoft have finally caught up and kind of rectified the previous problems, but as per usual, we found a way around them. So that video you might want to bookmark. So if you are going to install Windows 11 and potentially Windows 10 might be getting that restriction. So pushing people over to use the Microsoft account on Windows 10 as well. Unbelievable. Anyway, there you go. I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching. Good night, everybody. Kath says good night, and yeah, we'll see you in the next video. Have a good rest of your weekend.